physio today. Yep. Yep.
How is your leg?
It's getting better. It's improving.
Mm-hmm. So what is the where are you at with your leg?
Is this like
This is part of it, yeah. We're in
it. We're in the thick of it.
Well, how did you
action?
Yeah. I know, Jeff, like action. How did you injure it?
Skiing,
right, okay.
yeah.
So what did you do?
Well, this was they did an ACL
Right, okay.
surgery. Had a few things, but that's what they fixed.
Yeah.
It was all that needed repairing. So that was today. I'm like 7 weeks out of surgery.
Oh. I it was longer than that.
Feels about like 7 weeks to me. There was a lot of time on the couch. Like,
did you have like a knee brace on prior to that? Maybe that's around like.
Well, so I did the injury. Like the initial injury happened like well over a year ago, and there was the option to have surgery. And then I kind of chose the more conservative method of treatment, which was like to try to avoid having surgery because it would mean a lot of time off, and there's kind of risk with surgery. Or risks, I should say. But then unfortunately what I did was kind of like did a little bit more damage to the ACL. So rather than like the conservative method and, strengthening around it, just being like it's good. It's sort of when I was working this winter, I tore more. Oh. So then it became apparent where it's just like, no, like surgery is probably going to be the fix for it.
Yeah. And were you doing... Did it tear just because of the nature of your work, or did it tear because you weren't doing the stuff, the rehab stuff that they maybe told you?
No, I think I was pretty diligent to the rehab.
Right, okay.
Because I knew like how important it is, and with my degree, it's just like strength training was like a super big part of that whole kind of recovery to avoid the surgery. And then it was the most innocent of ways that it's kind of like not a very glorious, it's not a very glorified story, but I had brought my roommate dinner, and I went to give her a hug because she was sick. And so when I went to give her a hug, and then I got up, and it was just this like really innocent movement, and I just felt it kind of like pop a bit more. Yeah. I kind of knew, but also there's like there's a window where I was like, maybe I'm not that hurt, Yeah. And so I kind of like gave it a couple days of rest, and then tried to ski on it again. And it wasn't like terrible, but I think it was because I think I got away with it being more lax because I'm a strong skier, so I could kind of like, even when I got sore, just ski on one ski for a good chunk of the day or those sorts of things. But it was like kind of after 2 days of like testing it out, I'm like, no, I think I should, call timeout on this season, get it fixed, and yeah.
And did you did you go to the doctor like straight away, or did you just kind of make that assumption? You're like, nah, I know that this is.
Well, I didn't know for sure. It's hard to know, like inside, a joint, exactly, what did I feel or what happened. I mean, I had my suspicions. So I did go to a doctor, and the doctor spoke, and I was in Japan at the time. So anyway, so it was a Japanese speaking person telling me like, you sprained your knee, and like, take some time off.
Yeah.
Just like, okay.
Did you feel like you couldn't, just because of the language barrier, did you feel like there was an element where you feel like you couldn't like give him the full context of like, hey, I've done this before, blah, 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 or
I think, no, he was pretty good. Like, I actually, like, I wasn't in Japan for I ended up coming home early, of course, but like, but in the time that I was there, it's amazing how much, when you're kind of like immersed in a language, how much you can kind of pick up. But then Google Translate is also amazing. I hate to say, like, it's kind of easy. It's an easy way to communicate, but in that context, in like a medical setting where it was something where I didn't want things miscommunicated, or, you know what I mean? It was like so easy to just like pass a phone back and forth.
Yeah. I've definitely made that. I think I've made the mistake of going into doctors for issues and actually giving them too much information. Like, I remember when I went in with my back thing, I went back I told them about an injury that I had like a decade ago. And then now in hindsight, I'm like, that probably, might have like somehow played into it, but I felt like I gave them like way too much information. Whereas I should have just been like, recently this is what's happened and this is how I feel, as opposed to being like, well, 10 years ago I was deadlifting and then like 5 years after that, I think I overloaded them with information.
But too much.
Yeah. Like, and the reason I did that though is because it was all in the same area, which is why I thought it was like, oh, I should tell them because maybe it's all part of the same thing. But now I'm like, I probably just gave them like more information, which I don't know if it clouded their judgment. Because they're like, okay, well, you did that when you were doing weights. You did this one when you were doing running, and you've done this one when you were doing Muay Thai. And even though they may have been related because they were in the same area, I think I should have just given them like, I've done this recently and taken it from there. And if they'd been like, oh, have you done anything before? I could have given them that information. But I think I kind of bamboozled them a little bit with just like way too much.
It's hard to know. I guess, I don't know. Some doctors might be used to that,
I know.
And you're like giving them the history. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I did think I kind of like, I just kind of like bamboozled them. So is that why you came back from Japan early then?
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was Japan
pre-injury? It was so fun. And so...
is it what everyone says it is, which is just like feet and feet and feet of snow?
Yeah. Depending on where you are, for sure. Some places I think tend to get more, but the weather is just, so consistent there. And it's the way, there's just this like, it kind of like the taps just come on all of a sudden in the winter there, and it just snows and snows and snows.
Yeah.
And it's consistent and predictable. And
because that doesn't seem, well, obviously the last couple of seasons here in the Rockies, like it hasn't really been as...
It's been consistently dry.
It's been consistently pretty bad, yeah.
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 So it was kind of cool to go from that, like, kind of a couple droughts of snow seasons and like poking around in the Rockies and trying to find good skiing, to there it was just like kind of get a reset most days. There were times there when it didn't, you know what I mean? Like it didn't snow quite as much and there'd be a little, I guess you'd call it a little drought of snow, but it's just like the consistency there. And the snowpack was different than what I was used to here, it was good. Yeah.
Definitely.
It was I think it kind of more of like a coastal snowpack, so they get a lot of snow.
Is it wetter then?
Snow's really dry.
Oh, is it dry?
Like it's drier. Yeah. I think it also depends. I don't want to like generalize because I was only in a small, you know what I mean? Like I was in on Hokkaido, like in the kind of like central Hokkaido.
Yeah. For
the most part of my trip there. And so I'm sure there's variances too, whether like one part of a tour I did, we went down along the coast near a little town called Otaru, which was really cool. And I'm sure there would be variances, and as well in comparison to like the main island and the Swiss Alps would be very different probably than where I was. So I don't want to give like a big generalization of, exactly what Japan is, but it lived up to the hype for sure. Like I came home wanting to go back. Like kind of part of me knowing I'll go back in a way.
And I think that's also because it got cut short. You kind of didn't get to do like a full season.
I think, I didn't get to do a full season. I have a friend that I did a bunch of mountaineering with here in the Rockies years and years ago, and kind of decided also just to come home and not see her. So that was a bit of a real, like, I don't know, a sad moment when I was just like, well, do I go see her or do I go home and like kind of like deal with what's going on? Yeah. And so I think I want to go back. There's even been a thought, I've talked to her about like just going back this fall even, and just going and doing some like hiking and climbing, maybe take a bike over, those sorts of things.
Yeah. And I mean, so I've been to Japan, not for snowboarding. I went to Japan like years ago just to travel. And I'm, as you know, not a tall person, but I in Japan was like quite tall. So I would imagine that you must have been like fairly tall, especially.
That was one perk. I remember we went, like as part of the work I was doing, we went into Sapporo, which is probably, I think it's one of the larger cities on Hokkaido. Like it's a big, for me, it's a big city.
Yeah.
Farm kid from Alberta. It's like eyes wide open. I'm like, oh my goodness, like there's a Ferris wheel on top of a skyscraper. But yeah, that was one thing I noticed was that like especially in busy places, the shop, like a grocery store, or a mall or something. Yeah, like I had like a full view,
Yeah.
If I was missing a friend, I would just kind of like, oh yeah, there you are.
Yeah, no.
Like, yeah. And that was the other thing I would, like going to the rec center there, I would like on days off, go for a swim or go for a little workout or something. And that was one thing, to get on a stationary bike at the gym. Like they're not built for someone with
Your lens.
my legs. It was just like, it was quite comical. There's certain things
Oh,
that
so the bikes wouldn't even go, like the seat wouldn't even be
it
up.
wouldn't go high enough for
Really?
me.
That's
Yeah.
surprising. I would have thought,
Yeah.
I don't know why, I would have just thought kind of those bikes would be universal to a degree.
Yeah. It was not a problem I thought I would have. You know, it's
Yeah,
not
no.
something my forethought was like, oh, but now in knowing that I want to go back, I think if I was going to go on like a bike packing trip there, which is kind of what we're maybe thinking of doing, I would certainly fly my own bike over. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
remember.
wouldn't take the risk of like hoping to rent something and
Yeah, I remember I did a race this is like a long time ago, but I did a race and I made the really idiotic decision, but it made sense at the time, obviously. To Someone had lent me a large bike, so it was kind of like a financial decision. They lent me this large bike. I was training for this race, and I was just like, oh, if I like train on this is so dumb, but I was like, if I train on a bike that is too big for me and not the right size, because I was planning on renting one for the day. Then I was like, when I rent one on the day, I'll be like even faster because I'll then be on a bike that's the right size.
yeah.
Which, young lad made sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then what actually happened was I trained on that bike for like a year, the wrong size, so that when the race actually came, I was uncomfortable on the correct bike.
Yeah.
My body had like adjusted,
To like
yeah,
reaching
had become
farther or like
comfortable with like the overreaching.
mm-hmm.
So when I was actually on the bike that was the correct size, it was it felt too small, even though it was correct. Yeah, no, it's
So
like
didn't
really,
kind of
no. But did you like Japan though?
loved
Like
it.
just in general,
The
yeah.
food, the culture,
Yeah,
the
it's amazing.
people, like it's just
Because that is a real like culture change from like, rural Alberta to, I know it's
to
not rural here, but,
no, but it's small.
or
I think
maybe
it
like
still has like a
upbringing.
feeling of being a like smaller
Yeah,
community, like between Banff or Canmore. You know what I mean? Like it's like a
yeah.
tight knit,
Or like
smaller
even like
feeling.
that North American culture. Like I know I'm kind of
No, it was a
generalizing there, but
it was a huge transition when I went over.
because
That's my
nothing's
first
in
time
it.
I've been to Asia.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember the first day just being in that's when it hit me. I think I went over in a bit of a naive way, but I went over there and I just realized like nothing in the grocery store. I was like, there's no English,
There's no
like
English
anywhere,
anywhere. Yeah, yeah.
anywhere.
I know.
And like people don't really want to talk to you in English either, which like is fair, you know? Um, but so I remember being in the grocery store like 2 or 3 days in and just being like completely kind of overwhelmed in a way where I was just like, oh my goodness. And then I remember like, oh wait, you have the Google Translate, you know? And like there were little things that, within the first week, life got a lot, I would say, easier. You kind of like adjust to things. And in 6 weeks, it was amazing how much like I could pick up, like small conversations, like things like if I needed something somewhere, or, like how to get somewhere, things like that. I picked up
Yeah.
some of the Japanese.
Yeah, because I remember when I went there, I just was naively thought there'd be some English somewhere. There's no English, no public signs,
No
like the
signs,
airport
no
stuff.
nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I had a few drinks. So when I landed, I was like slightly like tipsy. So I just say that in the sense of like I wasn't in a like completely sober, like, right, let's figure this out. I was like kind of like a few pints later. So I was like kind of looking at stuff also with that kind of like, I was like, is this in English or am I just like,
Word.
am I
Yeah.
actually way more
Do
drunk?
I need like another beer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't even know when I went there. I didn't know that again, just sort of lack of education. I didn't know that Japan even had like a ski season. Like when I went there, I went in like October, and it was, it was beautiful. Like, and I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, I'd love to come back here in the winter. Not in any way thinking about snowboarding. I purely was just like, I bet you it's beautiful to come here.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd kind of like, I went Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, and then when I was in Osaka, I went up into like the mountains to stay at like this kind of like temple thing. That was like unreal.
That was the other thing that I think I really want to go back to is like their like Shinto, like their
Yeah, yeah.
religion and all of the
Did you do that walk?
temples.
There's like a really famous Shinto walk. I can't remember what it.
Probably not, because I didn't
You would know it. It was like
spend
this.
much time. Like I came home through Narita and that was the only time I went to a temple, which I was like so thankful for that like it was kind of like a neat way to end the trip, given everything kind of not panning out quite like the plan was to go. But yeah, and the other thing too that I thought was very interesting as a skier is that the Japanese they believe the trees are sacred, so they don't actually really
really?
ski in the trees. Like it's kind of like a, yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that, but I
They
feel
think,
like that kind of rings a bell now.
I hope I'm not misspeaking, but like I think they believe that God is in the tree, like in the trees, and so the trees are like very sacred.
Yeah.
Um,
I also didn't realize Japan had bears.
yeah, like
Yeah.
like grizzly bear type bears.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when I went into the mountains to go to that temple for a couple of days, I remember going on a hike with this guy, and we were like walked past a sign like stapled to a tree, and it was like, you know, bear warning sign, and I didn't, I get, you know, lack of education again, but I was just like, I didn't even know that they had bears in Japan. So then I was like, oh, this is a terrible idea. Because we went from just like I'm not kicking around, but like on a couple of hours hike, it wasn't that bad. Like it wasn't even, I can't really think of anything to equate it to here, but you know, it was like kind of maybe a 3 hour round trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember I went from being like, oh, this is like so beautiful. And then I instantly was like, oh, like, I really don't want to be here. Just because I think at that point I hadn't lived in Canada, so I wasn't in any way like accustomed to being in a place where bears were a thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think
like
that was the
wildlife.
first country I'd been to where bears were like a thing, like still existed. So yeah, I think I was just like, oh my God, this is terrifying. But we were fine, obviously, I'm still here.
It's probably like being here, you know, as long as you're kind of aware. And,
I think now if I went, I would be a lot more like, I think it'd be like very cool because I know what to do now. Whereas when I went there that time, I would probably do the opposite what you should do now, which I was like, we need to be extra quiet. I was like, you know,
and the bears don't hear us. Yeah,
just to like, because you just don't, because now they obviously, what you want to do is you want to make noise so that they hear you coming from like afar.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas at that point, I thought like you don't want to make noise because you don't want them to know that you're here.
Did you just envision you becoming like a snack at that moment? Like if you're talking,
it was like
ultimate bear snack,
ultimate like worst case scenario. But yeah, Japan was
Did you just go as a holiday, like with friends?
We just went as a holiday. Yeah. I went with a friend who, so I was there for like 12 days, and I think he only met me for like, he was living in China and I was living in Australia, so we kind of met up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember like, this is a friend though that like we grew up together, and I realized after this holiday, I was like, he's the kind of friend I would now go on holiday with just to drink. Because that's all he wants to do. So I say that just to say that, you know, it's like a 12-day holiday. Say the first 10, even if it was a week, the first week of it was like me going to like temples and this and that. And then the second week was just like, all we did was drink. And I was like, oh, not sure I enjoyed that as much as all the like finding myself in the forest and the temple stuff that I was doing. But yeah.
But you get a bit of both that way. Yeah.
A bit of both, yeah.
And you probably saw Tokyo. Like I didn't get a bunch of the like big city. I mean, that's not really what I went for anyways, but I think when I go back, I want to do a little more of that because I think there's something to be said for, you know, all the big, you know what I mean? Like it's very electric, I think, like the lights and the...
Yeah, like we actually had like, the stuff I did with him was actually really cool. I think I could have just done like a couple of days less. Like I would have done a couple of days more of the, like still like, you know, having fun and drinking and stuff like that, but like the days were more active, I guess. Whereas when he came over, it was kind of like going out all night, sleeping all day, and then doing it. But yeah, Tokyo was sweet. But yeah, maybe the same as you were like, I mean, we obviously live in small towns here. Like it makes sense that big cities maybe not my main thing, but it was really cool.
Yeah.
Like, it definitely is, yeah, it's because it's so different though, I think. You know what I mean? It's like not going to like
it's not only going to Calgary.
No, or like any like Canadian city.
Yeah.
Like if I went to like, maybe, I don't know if like Quebec and Montreal would be different because they're kind of older, but you know, like, may kind of generalization be, but I assume like minus the geography, like the city of Vancouver and Calgary and like Edmonton, like would they all kind of blend into one? I'm not sure. Whereas if you go from one of them to like Tokyo, you're like, especially for us being like white people, you're like,
it's very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
So what did you do? So you haven't been skiing since you got back then?
No, I've kind of been.
So what your injuries, obviously, what have you had to kind of pivot with your injury? Because your work is, you're a hiking guide, you're a ski guide.
I'm not certified yet, like through the ACMG to be ski guiding. Yeah.
So see, when you worked at heli lodges before?
I've worked for CMH, but I had my role with them was more operational.
Right, okay.
So I did go into the lodges, but I wasn't guiding with them.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
How are the lodges? Are they, I imagine it's a real mix of like really nice people and then really rich, not so nice people.
I wasn't in I mean, that wasn't like a direct part of my job there. So, I mean, I only went into a few lodges for like, brief windows. So, I mean, my experience of it was very much like, I think all positive, I can't say.
And I mean, you get that, it's a stupid question because you get nice and bad people in everything.
Yeah, I think
everywhere.
There's definitely probably different people have different expectations sometimes, and managing that is probably, where I think there's, you know what I mean? Probably big variances in people.
Yeah.
Or just people's attitudes or.
What lodge were you at?
I've been into the Bugboos Lodge.
Right, okay.
Which is beautiful.
Is it beautiful? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like where like CMH like started their whole heli skiing operation. So it's kind of like a neat little like historic part of their whole operation. And then I've also skied in the Bobby Burns.
Yeah, which is named after Robert Burns, like a famous Scottish poet, I think. I will maybe need to fact check myself after this, but I think it's named after Robert Burns, who's a famous Scottish poet.
Could be. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll check it. Yeah,
we'll check this. We'll do a Google search.
Yeah, if we had someone over there, I'd be like, "Can you Google this right now?" But
and they could like shine a green light or like a red light, like.
I think with the lodges, though, I was thinking of it like, is it because it must be like incredibly beautiful and peaceful, but then you've also got these like helicopters like constantly on.
Yeah,
so it must be like
it's a different feel than when I've been into like lodges that are strictly like ski touring lodges.
Yeah,
and I think those lodges are like it's different because the heli ski lodges, it's usually like multiple different group, like, you know what I mean? It's like multiple groups, different bookings that kind of all converge together, but everyone still has that same, people are there because they love to ski kind of. So there's some, like connection. Whereas a lot of times when you go into these smaller like ski touring lodges, it's quieter because you're ski touring the whole time. And the other thing is like some of them are small enough that it's only, you know what I mean? Maybe like 8 to 12 people there.
Oh, really?
So usually it's like one booking. And like a group of people, they all loosely know each other already coming in, or they're already friends and stuff like that. So that's a very different like energy as opposed to the heli skiing lodges for sure.
Yeah, there's a guy in town that he swims at the pool, and we were chatting away, and he invited me to go to a lodge with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was now because I think it was. Anyway, we've got our own work ski camp going on right now, which Jeff is on, which is the 16th which is yesterday for a week. But this guy asked me to go, but his was like, it was like 5 days, but the last 2 days would have overlapped with today and yesterday with the work one, which I need to be in the office to make sure stuff's going.
Yeah.
But I remember it was kind of like when he asked me, I was like, obviously like really appreciative of it, but I was also like, and I kind of said this to him, I was like, I only know him from the pool, and I think there was a bunch of them going.
And this was like a ski touring lodge, or
like a ski touring lodge. Yeah. And I was like, my only worry is that like you don't know how I snowboard. I was like, I'd worry that you guys are like, he was slightly older than me, so I just made the assumption that he's probably got a lot more experience than me, and I was like, I just don't want to hold you guys back. And he was like, nah, like it's cool, just come along. But yeah, and it's really nice that he asked me, but again, like I only really chat to this guy in the gym, like I haven't hung out with him outside it, and I was like, oh, it's like kind of cool that this guy invited me to do this thing with him and his mates when I didn't really know that well. And I was really tempted, but then my work thing.
It's always really cool. I've gone to a few like I did one trip into Fairy Meadows, and I only knew like one friend called me because they had a last minute. It was kind of maybe similar to this.
I think they had a last minute spot.
Yeah, they had a spot come up, and my buddy's like, "Can you get out of work for, you know what I mean, like the next week?" And so I quickly I think I had 2 things within that week going on that I had to call, and one of them may have been here. I don't remember.
Yeah.
The other one was like my more like routine winter job. I was just like, so I have this chance to go ski touring at Fairy Meadows. Like, can I go? And both of my employers at the time were like, yeah, you go. Like people were really understanding. And like, I only knew that one friend, but it's amazing how much you can kind of like make these really neat connections, even if you don't know people that well, just because you're out there and there's no distractions, you can't like, oh, I'm going to check my Facebook or I'm going to do this. And then when you're there for the week, you're like making plans, like, like what are we going to ski tomorrow? And where do we want to go? And even lots of trips when I've done that too, like there's usually kind of people who are really like, chargy and like, okay, we weren't, you know what I mean? Like really objective motivated. We're like, we want to go ski this and stuff, and the conditions prevail. And then there's usually like, as the week sorts out, like a more relaxed group that's kind of like, okay, we're going to go, you know, ski in the trees here, do this or whatever. And so I think like for your worry when you were like, oh, I didn't know if I'd fit in, like, and it's always worth going.
I know.
And like,
if our ski camp hadn't overlapped, I would definitely would have asked Jeff if I could go. And he probably would have said yeah, but yeah, just for like, we've had like a bunch of like vehicles breaking down and stuff. And there were two of them are in the shop, so without like boring us about it, like it was more just that I was like, I would hate Jeff if I'd asked him. I want to say he probably would have said yeah, but my worry would be that it would like what happens if like vehicles went down, and because Jeff and I obviously do the operations. Dom does the marketing, so I'd be asking Dom and like do like a job for 2 days that he never does, and if something did actually go wrong, it'd be like. It would kind of just be like, it'd be like him, like, I don't know, throwing me into marketing for 2 days and just being like, oh yeah, like do all this Google Ads stuff. And I'd just be like,
I've been making like stickman marketing.
Yeah. It's like, hi, it's me. But yeah, so, and did you do the heli ski thing for like just a season, or was it like a couple of seasons?
It was just one season that I worked for CMH, and then I got to go back into the Bug Blues Lodge just like via going as someone's guest, like going as a staff member's guest once.
Yeah.
So that was like a perk after I wasn't working for them anymore. Yeah, so it's kind of like 2 seasons, I guess, that I was in there. The one time was just like a week-long trip, obviously. But yeah, it was just one winter season that I worked for them. But I think, you know, should I like pursue ski guiding? Maybe I definitely think I'd want to do a bit of heli skiing work.
Yeah, do you want to pursue ski guiding? Or is your knee kind of making you like, oh, well, I don't know? I
think it's one of those like, I think right now I'm kind of like a we'll see kind of thing, you know? In the past, it's been something that, yeah, I've definitely like avidly kind of wanted to pursue. But now it's like we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is your main, is your main kind of like work hiking then? Hiking?
In the summer, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And in the winter, the last 3 winter seasons, I've been like skiing full time in the winter. Like tail guiding or So that's, and in the, like when I was younger, like right out of high school, I came into a winter season at Sunshine teaching ski lessons. So I think I've always kind of, my winters have largely been very influenced by skiing and the ski industry. And
so that's a good question. How did you, from someone who, I think you said you grew up on a farm in Alberta, how did you get into like guiding for ski? I know you're not a ski guide now, but how did you get into the life that you now have, which is like being a hiking guide and the skiing side of things?
I think there was a few things sort of that maybe got me to where I am now. Yeah. So I grew up in central Alberta, which is
where?
Just south of Edmonton.
Okay.
Yeah. So I used to always say, because if people from Calgary sometimes shit on Edmonton.
Yeah.
But I would, it's like a, true blue Edmonton fan, would always say, it was like equal distance, whether you could drive to Banff or Jasper. So you kind of like get the best of both mountain towns. But then my parents, so my dad would work, he sort of managed, or like supervisor managed, I guess, one of the local ski schools. And so that, I think, was a bit of a kind of like shoe into learning to ski really young. And then my parents also put both my brothers and I in the like Nancy Green alpine ski racing program.
Right, okay.
So we became pretty just really good, like strong foundational skiers. And so that would bring us to the mountains. So that was kind of one draw, like for me young. I don't remember learning to ski. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't tell you the first time I got to like come to Banff, which is very, you know what I mean? I'm very grateful for that, for my parents. And then the second thing that probably drew me to the mountains and like the Canmore, the Bow Valley area was that I had an aunt and uncle that lived here my whole life. So, so we would always come, visit my cousins and go hiking in the summer or go fishing with like the dads weren't as keen to go hiking. They were more into, fishing, those sorts of activities. But so we'd come camp and hang out with them down here. And so I think it's those ties that sort of made it easy to sort of make a second home here. The farm's not that far away, so.
But then how did you kind of go pursue the like career side of things? Like, because you said you had a degree, is that right?
So out of high school, I did a typical ski bum year.
Okay, right.
I moved to Canmore, stayed in my aunt and uncle's basement, slept on the floor, in a very glamorous way, and did a season at the ski hill.
Right, okay.
And then my thought was kind of to stick around for the summer and do work as like a horseback guide for the summer. And then my plan sort of shifted, as you know what I mean, when I think I was 19 years old. So, and then I decided, I can't really say what made me decide this. People always ask, they're like, what made you decide to do this? But I decided to go to Olds College, which is in Alberta, which is an agricultural college. And I took a blacksmithing program. So that was my first kick at post-secondary education. So that became like 8 years of my life, was I ran a business shoeing horses in like the Edmonton area. And I think, I mean, at that point in my time, I had no idea that really like guiding was this like profession that you could like make a living at and really do. But then from there, then I went back to university kind of after 8 years of having, I'd say, it was a really successful business and I really enjoyed it. But I kind of thought like, I don't know if I want this to be my forever career, you know? And so then I went back to university and I was doing like a combined phys ed and education degree. And then, I don't know if this is like it is what it is. It took me a long time to finish my degree. So then I took quite a hiatus and I actually ended up working for a school district in Northeast BC. And my job there was working primarily with grades 4 to 7 students, but the school district there also had this whole outdoor ed facility, and we had like canoes that we kept that were at the school district, and then there was another set of canoes at the school district basically owned an outdoor ed facility that was like a summer camp, which is kind of rare but also really cool for the students there. So my job there, I sort of dabbled in like career education and outdoor education. I mean that, and I always like, I don't know, I think from the time I could become a ski instructor, like as soon as I could take the exam, I became a ski instructor. So I think there was always a bit of me that was working in the outdoors in some way. And then after being in Northeast BC, I actually moved back to Canmore, and then I took like a backcountry skiing like weekend, like 2-day whatever, with an ACMG guide. And that was, I think, the moment where I was like, whoa, like how did I never know this whole career existed? You know? And I was like, this is like really fun. Like it's hard work, which I think shoeing horses, like I don't know, something about me has always loved like physically hard
manual
labor. Yeah. So then I was like, oh, cool. Like this is maybe what I should do with my life. Like I have all these skills that sort of like filter into this, and and so then that was when I first got into guiding. So took the like apprentice hiking guide exam, and then my post-secondary hiatus ended, and then I finished my university degree, and now I've just been kind of like picking away at more and more guiding certifications, and so I have like, I do a bit of mountain bike coaching and work some winters too, or some summers, sorry. Actually, I guess I've done some fat biking, so winter, but
And how did you get into the biking? Like, was that just something you always did, like as a kid, like cycling?
I remember like in the summer staying up late with my brothers, you know, like all our chores were done, and building like bike jumps in the yard.
How many brothers did you have again?
I have 2 brothers.
Right, yeah. So 3 of you, 2 brothers.
There's 3 of us. Right, yeah. One older, opposite. One younger.
Yeah, I got like 2 sisters and me.
Nice.
But it must have had, I think that like it must have definitely had an influence on you, like having 2 brothers.
I sometimes wonder what my life would have been like with sisters, but I'm really grateful for my brothers. Like, I don't know, they just pushed me to like, again, they just like, you know, there was never, I couldn't ever not, you know what I mean? There was no like middle ground or not, maybe not middle ground. There was no like lessening the bar because I was a girl. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, for me, it was like more, there's like multiple like questionable pictures out there of me dressed up with like makeup and stuff. Because I was just like a little kid. I just wanted to play with my sisters. So I would just do whatever they wanted to do. And they're like, right, cool, well, we're playing makeup. And I'd be like, sweet. Also, I'm not 17 at this point in time. I would give myself the benefit of the doubt I was significantly younger. But there are like genuine pictures of me dressed up as like a fairy. And I'm just like having the time of my life. But
that's cool.
I feel like yours should be the opposite.
I was going to say it was very the opposite. Like, there was very few dresses probably worn in my home.
I think like my dad's, who's like super open minded and in no way like old man who's like, boys should wear this. But I think like there was one time, so I'm told, where like I came in like a dress for like the 100th time, and I think he was just like, this has to stop. Like this
That's
is
it.
like getting to the point where it's too much. But so yeah, so your brothers, so they kind of got you into the cycling and just like building dirt.
Yeah, I mean, we always had bikes on the farm. I
Like
think
dirt
we
bikes
were
or just cycling bikes? I say
uh
cycling bikes, mountain bikes.
so, yeah, mountain bikes. Um, I was not much into motorsports. I'm
No,
still really not.
are
My
they?
brothers more so. Yeah,
Yeah.
my older brother got bought his own quad when he was 16 and stuff like that, and I would still be like riding my pedal bike around. But sorry, what was the question?
I can't remember,
Mm.
but what I would ask you is, I think I was asking you how you got into cycling, and I was kind of going to lead that on to the
Mm.
fact that you, like a couple of years ago, like 2022, you did
That sounds right.
you
Yeah,
did a 24-hour cycle,
I did.
and you won it.
I
So you
know, it was
also, so you
mind
must,
blown. I was
yeah.
surprised myself.
No, but you must be good though. That's my point. Like, it's like, is it something that you just like, you actually actively were like, you're trained mountain biking, or were you just like, you cycled a lot, you signed up for a race, and then you just won it?
The bike, it was actually spurred. That bike event, the
Yeah.
same trip, that Fairy Meadows trip, that just a spot, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
opened up on. Um, One of my friends who had actually biked with before, were up in there at the hut, and he's like, you know what, Laura? He's like, I think you should enter this race. And that was how, I think there might have been a seed sort of planted about that race before, but I think it was actually Jeremy kind of saying like, I think you have the mindset and you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So what was the race again? Like, what was the actual format of it?
So the format of that race that I did was, it's a 24 hours, and basically it's like who can do the most of one lap.
Mm-hmm.
So some people you tell that to and they immediately, you know what I mean? It doesn't sound all that exciting.
Yeah. How long was the lap?
I think it was about 14 kilometers.
Okay, so it's still
So
like quite long.
yeah, yeah. So I think my fastest lap when I was like fresh, and the very last lap, somehow I found this like weird gumption to have like my first and my last lap were actually very close to the same time. But it was like a 45-minute lap, let's say.
Oh, that's
Like,
actually quite short then, if you're just for 24 hours though.
yeah. Yeah. I ended up having one lap that was I struggled through, I suffered through.
In what way? Like physically,
I
or
think you
you're
just
just like,
get so tired.
yeah, you're just like, what am I doing here?
And it's a bit of like, yeah. And
Had you ever done anything through the night before?
no,
Right, okay, how did you find that?
I really, like, up until then, I had the only really like night riding I had done would have been like fat biking when the days are short here,
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, and you're riding and you have like a lantern on your helmet and the lantern on the handlebars. And
Yeah.
it's kind of actually fun because you're kind of just like zoned in to like exactly like just the trail and what you're riding, and everything else around you is just like
Yeah.
the abyss. And so it's kind of neat. And the other part about that was, while you were on the race course at night, you could actually see little sections sometimes of like other parts of the course. So sometimes you would see, like people on different sections of it. But I think the one lap that took me very long, if we were to, pull up the results or go back and look at it, it was at night. And I think I was just like really tired. And I think no matter who you are, if you do something, you know what I mean? If you try to physically do something for 24 hours, you're going to have moments of mental gumption, And so I think that was probably a bit of that lap was probably also like,
How did you just, was there like, did you need to like talk yourself through it, or were you literally just like, I'll just keep going? Like, I just need to keep going.
I had like, luckily I had a friend who's done a lot of triathlons, and he talked to me kind of before the race, and all he said to me very simply, he said, Laura, you're going to have like really, you know what I mean? You're going to have highs where you're kind of like, everything feels good and things are going well. He's like, and you're going to have these like lows where, you're like kind of even almost like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And he's like, and you just have to ride them out. And so I think it was that advice that really, I was just like, whatever, I'm going to have moments where, you know what I mean? It might feel okay, and moments that feel really crap, but whatever.
Yeah, because the reason I remember the years because I also had that endurance race that
Yeah,
I
you were
did.
like running.
Yeah, and I remember having the exact same thing where it was like it was kind of like halfway through the entire thing, like halfway through, so it was like 2 a.m. Same thing, headlamp on, so you can't run through a forest, different forest in here, but like a kind of like more city forest. And it's all pitch black, can't see nothing. And I remember just being like, it was just like a kind of collection of like, what the fuck is going on here? And not in like and again, I didn't at any moment think what, like I was going to stop, but I remember just being like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like you're in the middle of like, and I'd only been in Canada a few years, so I'm like, you're in this random country, like in this random city, because it was in Lethbridge, which I'd never been to before, in the dark at 2 a.m. on some like out in some like point. It just was like the randomness of the whole thing, I think, just struck me a little bit in a kind of delirious state. And I remember and luckily one of my sisters called me because of the time difference in the UK. I don't know what time it was. It was like early morning. It was like 9 a.m. She called me to see how I was getting on, and at this moment, she was like, "How you getting on?" I was like, "I don't really know. Like, I'm just kind of like," and she literally didn't really do much apart from just talk to me.
Yeah.
And just having that kind of, I think because it was just such a foreign and like, not even uncomfortable, but just I'd never been in that position. I never ran at 2 a.m. in the dark by myself in the middle of nowhere.
After you'd already ran for so long too, right?
For so long, yeah.
Like, I think, I don't know, maybe you can relate to this, but I think that's what kind of like stacked up for me too. It was just like, it was like after however many hours, you're by the time I was probably, like, I don't know, 10, 15 hours into exercising when I had this moment, you know what I mean? And it was just like,
and how was your pace? Was it like you kind of just like sauntering along, or were you still keeping like quite a good pace?
I think I had a steady pace throughout the whole thing. In my head, I knew that I was just like, you just have to keep going. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, there's nothing complex about it. It's quite simple, and you just keep riding. And I remember there were people that I knew also doing the event, because you can do the event as a team as well. Mm-hmm. So some friends of mine teamed up and they did it as a team of 5. And I remember like my friend Kuba, like we kind of somehow met up somewhere on the course. I think I'd come through the finish and anyways, it was just like the whatever random timing of it. But so I was like kind of riding with him for a bit, and he's super like fit and fast. And I remember like trying to keep up with him. And again, this was like, I think, like 18 hours into the thing. And I was just like, I can't keep up with you right now. He's like, no, don't even try. You know what I mean? Like he knew. He's like, there's no way in this moment in time. He's like, I've just slept for 4 hours. He's like, I'm just doing a hot lap right now. And I'm like, just said, but I knew that was like, I knew it's just like, you just have to be so consistent for those, you know what I mean? 24 hours. It wasn't about like throwing down like a really fast lap. It was just about just being like really steady.
And was it fairly consistent when you look back on the like intervals if you were doing that? Like, was a pace for each lap kind of the same?
It was pretty similar. You could tell where I like fatigued and, you know what I mean? There's probably minus the one lap. I don't know. We'll call it the death march lap. One lap. We won't speak of it too much. But I think I was probably, within 15 minutes, half an hour, kind of within that. Which I think if you're doing something like that is reasonable.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd never done anything like that before.
So how many laps did you do then in the end?
I think I did 10 laps.
Right, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And did you know, like, what was who was the next person? Do you know how many laps they did?
I think they did.
Did you know when you were cycling, like, where people were?
Unfortunately, I did, yeah. The beauty of, like, technology.
Oh, okay.
And also a friend of mine, his job is, like, tech and timing for races. And so I didn't realize it, but you can, like, download it as the event's going on. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I remember signing up for the event and just, like, being like, whatever, I'm just doing this for me. Like, I didn't really have this. I certainly didn't want to win. Maybe part of me was a little competitive, But I guess maybe I didn't have the expectation to win. Yeah. For sure. But then, once I like knew I was in the lead, then it became like this competitive thing where I was like, okay, maybe I can, like, and I didn't win the whole event. I just won my age group. But, but yeah. And then the weirdest thing happened again. I'm going to blame it on kind of sleep deprivation. But in that last lap, I came in really tired, and a friend brought me a latte, and another friend was there with an energy gel, and I like remember kind of like I was easy on the coffee, but like smashed the energy gel, And because I really didn't want to go back out again. And my friend's like, well, if you don't, like, someone could, you know what I mean? He's like, what if you don't win? And I think he knew that person was like far enough behind me that I think I would have still won then. But I'm so glad that he put that, like, and then in a weird, not having slept enough way, the last lap, anytime another woman passed me, I knew the other woman's name who was like next behind me. I was like, are you so and so? And I was just like, I felt
really?
like I'm sure I was a little bit, I don't know. But yeah, but I think in my head, it was because it would be a shame to have like been ahead so far. Yeah. And I didn't know if I would have had the energy to really like come back. You know what I mean? You just never know. Like I don't think I've ever exercised for that long.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. I was like, would I find the gumption to really like be able to like catch someone and like chase someone down and have this like, really cool like, battle to the finish? Or would I just like, not be able to catch them, or I don't know. So then, yeah, something very competitive in me was like, no, you have to win now. Which I didn't.
So cool.
Yeah, I didn't expect to have that like really like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So how did it feel like once you'd done it? Were you like, wow, I can't believe I just won that?
I couldn't believe I won, but it was also just like, I don't know, I think I was really proud of myself just for like showing up and finishing. You know what I mean? Because I think that that's something that, like, I don't know, lots of people are just scared to do that sometimes,
Yeah, the hardest thing sometimes is signing up for the event.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a few things and I always find like, yeah, for me, the hardest thing is signing up. Because see, once you signed up and you paid your money, my mentality is like, well, I have to do the training. And see, once you go through the training, which also can equally suck at times, but by the time I get to the day of the thing, I know for a fact I've done all the training. Not that I'm going to win anything, but like, I'm like, I can do this.
But yeah, you have a sense of...
Yeah, but like, I will procrastinate for weeks, if not months, maybe not months, but weeks like prior to signing up. I'm like, oh, I should have signed up. And then eventually you just do it and you're like, right, cool. That's what, yeah.
Yeah. When I do accredit Jeremy to like him telling me like, you have the mindset to do this, I think that was kind of the tick on the box where it was like, I was kind of dabbling with signing up. And I think, yeah, him saying like, no, I think you should. And he had done it solo himself. So to hear from someone who had done it, as opposed to, people who just encourage you, like as friends or whatever, which is helpful still too. But to get encouragements from someone who had done that specific format of race, and for him to see something in me that was like, yeah, you should do it.
Did he elaborate on what he saw? Did you ask him?
I don't know if it was just like my mindset. Yeah. I mean, I don't know him that well, but I don't know. No, I don't know exactly, I guess.
Yeah.
I think he just maybe saw that. I think there's something about doing, like, similar to your run.
Yeah.
Like, it takes just this, like, you have to have the mindset, I think, because I do think that most people could do something like that, But it takes, like, the real commitment, you know what I mean? To, like you said, like, training and just, like, not giving up on yourself through the training or through the event, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, definitely always finding the trainings the hardest. Like, actually, when I did that Ironman, like this, I hated cycling. I hated it. But again, I had this bike that was too big for me, so that probably was a big factor.
Yeah.
But I remember one time it wasn't even that hard. So I did like a 2-hour cycle as part of the training. But at this point in time, I was doing like 6-hour training. This was just a short day. So it wasn't even like this was like at that point in time a particularly hard thing for me to do. But as in Scotland, like it doesn't take long for like the weather to turn. So I was only doing like a 2-hour cycle, but what happened was it started raining and it was windy at the same time. And I was like so ungodly cold that I was genuinely crying. Why? And I'm not, also was like 23 at this point in time, so I wasn't like a kid. So I was like crying. And then I remember coming in, and I'd moved home with my mum and dad, and I just came out the door crying. And my mum was like, well, like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, it was such a difficult thing, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But like the race itself, which was infinitely longer, was so much easier. Like it almost like there was points in the training that were just worse than the event itself.
Yeah.
And I guess if you kind of suffer through that, then you're like, okay, I've already had these moments of like,
why? You already know how to get through those really hard things, right? Like, is that, I don't want to put words in your mouth. But,
and I think that's what like, when, like, I think if you have a why, like if you have a reason for why you're doing it, then like when you have those low moments, you're like, I'm doing this because of like this reason, that whatever it may be for you.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you don't have that, then you're like, well, yeah, why am I doing this? And then you'll probably be like, yeah, I'm bailing.
Then you have a Forrest Gump moment of like, you just quit running.
Yeah. That's really cool though. Because I kind of assumed that you, I don't know why, I assumed you kind of went in with the mentality that you were going to win it, but it's almost like cooler that you were just like,
no, I kind of like, I had no idea. I'd never.
Did you know you were a good cyclist?
I think I would consider myself an average cyclist.
Yeah.
Like, I know that there's friends who are more skilled than me, especially in like, I mean, biking is kind of weird because there's so many like different genres, I guess, of biking, you could say, you know what I mean? And so this was like a cross country style biking where like the trails aren't really hard, but maybe more technical where there's like roots and rocks and things like that. Yeah, I don't know, but I've always loved biking. Like even when I was a kid growing up on the farm, like I would just go like ride my bike, randomly for exercise.
Yeah.
Like, even it was, like chores were all done. Just like, okay, I'm gonna go ride down to, the coulee and whatever, just be out on my bike. So I think I've always been passionate about biking. I don't know. But even after winning that, I think I would still probably say I'm only average, Like I think there's still, depending on what it is, I think there's,
And did you find that the cycling, hiking, and skiing ever like complemented one another?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's why when I moved back to the mountains, I think that's why I got back into mountain biking. Because to me, like skiing and mountain biking, there's something about the feeling of the two sports they're very similar, So I think that's, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that was one thing coming from like, I was kind of doing like triathlons, and then I remember when the first time I went ski touring, I just naively was like, oh, this will be like easy. I've just like done an Ironman. I'm like super fit. And then I did the ski touring thing and I was like, oh, this is horrible. But because I was just naive, I just thought like, I was good at one thing, I'd be good at this other thing, and I kind of realized I was like, okay, nah, these are like, because obviously the body mechanics.
Your fitness would be helpful, like.
Yeah, my cardio would be good, but yeah, I think, I just naively thought that, it'd be like, I thought it'd be a easy, whereas it was, and yeah, you're right. I think the fact that I had good cardio definitely helped me.
For sure.
Probably also didn't help that I went with Jeff, who was like, have you been with Jeff? You just like,
no,
he goes pretty fast.
I was just gonna ask if you went on a guided like thing.
Yeah,
if you're just like out with buddies or
work. Yeah,
and
nice. I was with Jeff, and I think, and again, to maybe give Jeff the benefit of the doubt, I tagged along on one of our like intermediate ski touring things.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole purpose of that was that it's not beginners. But I was like, oh, I'm super fit. Like, and I think Jeff was just like kind of took my word for it.
Mm-hmm.
So he like stormed away, and I was like, oh my god, this is dire.
Just watch him turn into a little speck.
Yeah,
no,
because by the time he got to the top of it, I was honestly, I didn't even enjoy coming down because I was so exhausted.
Yeah, tired. Yeah,
like it's the same. Like I know you probably had this with like skiing or anything that you do. Like the more tired you get, the harder the movements get. The more you fall more. You do all that stuff, and it's just like. So is there one between hiking, skiing, and cycling? Have you got like a preference?
No. I think I've always been someone who has a lot of diversity in the things I'm doing. Yeah, I think it would be hard for me to like, if someone was like, you have to pick one thing to do the rest of your life, I would be like,
nothing.
I would so nothing.
I don't want to do nothing.
I can't do a handful of things I don't want to do at all. No. No, I think, I just like them all. And I mean, the biking I think does complement the skiing.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I love hiking. And I think it's like, I think the transition I had from being just like a recreational human who does things in the mountains to like guiding was like, it's been really beautiful to see, taking people out to places that are just like my backyard that, maybe over time I'd kind of started to take for granted and kind of like, explore places with different people's perspectives and like share it with other people.
Yeah.
It's been a really cool transition.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I did you're an ACMG hiking guide, yeah. So I didn't do that. I did the IJ one, the Interpretive Guide Association one, which is, people argue whatever, but I think it's lesser. And even doing that though, I remember when I did that course, like it opened my eyes to like how much more responsibility there is when you're the person that's in charge of it. Because I was like, oh yeah, like I hike all the time with my friends, so I was like, it'll be. I didn't think, or just didn't know about everything else that obviously goes into when you're the person that was responsible. And what I mean by that is like the kind of health and safety side of things.
Yeah,
like, I remember doing the course and the guy had like multiple first aid kits. And he's kind of going through like if this happens, if that happens. I was like, oh yeah, like this isn't just like being hiking with your mates where like, if you and I are hiking and you break your arm, I'm going to try my best to help you and get you down, but it's not really you're not going to turn around and sue me.
Yeah, you don't bear any responsibility.
When I did that course, I was like, oh, this is actually like Because did you not take someone out with us and she like broke her like
I did have, I guess,
ankles and
yeah, she
wrists? It's
slipped
like,
and got injured, and it was a stressful
yeah,
moment
but
for
that's
sure.
like stuff like that where
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, that would have been like if roles were reversed and it was me,
Hmm.
that's not just like a like, hey, try your best. That's like, well, I mean, you obviously are trying your best, but it's not just like, hey, try your best, and if it doesn't work out, then
We're still buddies, and we'll still have beer. Yeah.
yeah, that's like you're like it's all on you, I guess is my point. And I kind of was like, oh, actually, that's a lot more pressure than I thought it would
Hmm.
be. And obviously, these things are really rare to happen.
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I was just like, it just made me realize I was like, oh, if this happens, this isn't like it's more of a serious thing than I really thought.
Yeah.
Than just recreationally hiking with your buddies, as you were kind of saying.
Yeah. I think there's like a sense of like, I mean, I would care for you. So if roles
Yeah,
were
no,
reversed and I had to
yeah,
help you, I'd care. But yeah, it's different when it's like a professional context, I suppose. Yeah.
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 And have you like on that, has you like is the stuff you've done recreationally changed because of your like more professional kind of experience? And
That's a good question.
like, are you more risk averse, or are you more if you're out
Um,
with your friends, you're like, has everyone got everything's right?
I think it depends. I don't know, it's kind of situational, I guess.
Yeah,
I think there's times where if I go out doing things with certain friends, and like we do definitely push the limits more than I probably would if I was out with guests, you
yeah,
know? Um, I mean, but that also depends on like if it's in the winter, like hazard levels or things like that, like
yeah,
it's kind of situational, I guess. Like, are there times where I know we're, like, you know, pushing risk to a level that's higher? Yeah, but I would say that's more on my recreational and personal days
yeah.
for sure.
And so are you with regards to knowledge and stuff you have, are you like comfortable like looking at the Avi like information that's out there and being and planning to like go out yourself? Or are you still like, yeah, you are, yeah,
Yeah, I think I've been doing, like, I think because I've been doing that for work,
yeah,
for the last few years. But even before I was doing that for work, I think like I, the first time I went out with, I did like the first time I ever went ski touring was like a guided trip.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then after that, I was like really, I made sure to do the due diligent things of like, take the ST courses and things like that. Which gives a person like a baseline, of like how you're going to like assess risk or avalanche hazard. And it gives you like the knowledge of, where to find that as a recreational skier.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you just sort of like, I mean, it built up like, friends you go with and different groups of friends. Like it always depends who you're with, kind of what the day's like in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Cause I have friends who are really conservative skiers and really, like just want to go out for fun and they don't want to ski anything that's, more hazardous or risky. And then I have friends that I ski with that, kind of like ski more, spicy things you could say or something. Like
Yeah,
we just sort of like, and we, like when I'm skiing with those friends, it's like, the day is just different. Like we know we want to go ski more challenging things and things like
yeah,
that.
yeah. I remember you kind of just reminded me there when I went out a day with Jeff. Again, on one of our kind of intermediate courses, and it's the whole point of the course is to push people, is to have them with a guide that will allow them to like do things that they wouldn't do if they were by themselves.
Yeah.
And I remember there was this time where like Jeff was taking us onto this like I can't even describe it, but we were on a ledge, we were on a ridge, and there was like a bowl to get up to the like another like flat plateau bit, and you would know the area, but I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, I remember Jeff was like, right, we need to get up in there because when we get up there, we can ski down there. But that, I swear my life, this thing was like a 10-foot wall of snow, like vertical like that on the other side of this bowl. So we were just like, how can we possibly get there? And Jeff like built this ladder in the snow and then was like rappelling us up and down. And so, but it was cool going with someone like him when you were saying about going with people who like, it depends who you go with, like what you
Mm-hmm.
do, like going with someone like Jeff, who, is so knowledgeable and like has so much experience to push you. I was like,
Yeah.
because I was like the guy that was like, we should be doing this. We definitely should be doing this. We're gonna die. We should do this.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the day, I was like, that's the best thing I've ever.
Amazing. Hey?
I've like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've shown that video to everyone because it was just like, it was unreal. So yeah, like it's definitely nice to go with people who you can trust and be like, right, okay, cool. Like let's actually push it a little bit further than.
I think that's the important thing too. Like when you are like, trying something that makes you uncomfortable to be with people who have those
Yeah,
skills, be them like professional or there's lots of people who have like really solid skill sets even as recreationalists for sure.
yeah,
But Yeah. And I think for me too, I think it's neat to, go out with both, you know what I mean? The people who just want to like have a fun day and not charge. And then also go out with people who are still like you said with Jeff, or like, people who are expanding your skill set and pushing you more. And
because it definitely makes you think, oh, like, but yeah, again, before that, like I would never, it definitely pushed me to be like, oh, sweet, I could probably do it. I if I was to go out again, which I have gone out again, then I was like, okay, cool, but we did this last time. So not that we were necessarily going to do that again, but it probably made me more comfortable, like, being like, sweet, like, cool, yeah, I'm up for like a bigger day, because now I've done a big day and I'm like, whereas before I think I'd probably have a lot of trepidation. And like, would I be enjoying the day as much? Probably not, because I'm like worried about, oh, like, can I do this? Whereas once you kind of do a couple of them, you're like, oh, sweet, yeah, I can do this. And then you enjoy it more, but.
Yeah, it takes that like fear or
yeah,
anxiety out of it.
And with the, like, so with the hiking, like, because there's a kind of like, I don't know if it is really a grey area, but is there kind of like a greyish area between like the hiking stuff you can do and then alpine stuff?
Yeah, there's a very.
Or is it not a grey area? Is it a very like definitive?
It's not very, yeah, it's very definitive between like what an alpine can do and the terrain they can be in, as opposed to me hiking with folks.
Is that like, you can't like, am I oversimplifying it? But is it like anything that like involves scrambling pretty much is? Like...
Yeah, no scrambling as a hiking guide. Basically, like up at Lake O'Hara, there's a few places where people have to, like maybe step down a rock or two, and so you can kind of do like things like that. But I believe the scope is like nothing out of like second class terrain. So.
And you obviously did like a bunch of Lake O'Hara last summer. Like,
I love it up there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, does it even with a place like that? Do you get to the point where you're like, cool, Lake O'Hara again, or are you like, no, I'm just blessed to be here every time?
Yeah, I think every time I go up there, I feel so lucky. Like I just really, I don't know, the area is so beautiful. And I think it's always like the guests are always there for their own reasons, and so it's neat to like figure out, kind of like some people are like locals from Calgary who, you know what I mean, have tried to win the lottery to get up there for the last 10 years and haven't been able to. So, or there are people from all over the world who, were like Googled, hikes to do in the area, and that one comes up obviously as like a really kind of pristine, beautiful place to be. No, so yeah, I don't want to say I'll never tire of it, because it seems like dangerous words to say. But there's so much terrain up there, and it's so beautiful, and the trail, like, I don't know, every summer you see mountain goats up there. And so it's really beautiful. Yeah. And there's a handful of ways to loop things together up there. So I would say that, like, the privilege of being up there is certainly that, me as the guide too has the ultimate choice, kind of, where we go or how we go about the trail system up there through the day. But it's not like, the same loop all the time. So there's variance, even though I'm working in, a fairly small area.
Yeah. Because minus the people who are employed by Parks Canada to be up there, like, you must be like up there with regards to like the amount of times you've been. Like, I can't imagine like an average person in the public being up there, like multiple times each summer?
Each summer, yeah. No, I feel really lucky. And I had been up there, I'd been up there before I started working for Jeff and working as a hiking guide. I had been up there before. So my family, we did a family trip up there with like me and my brothers and cousins.
Was this before it was kind of crazy, or has it always been kind of hard to
Even then, you still had to book the bus. So I think it's become more difficult to get into. But even when we went, I was a teenager, and we still had to, I think even then my aunt had to put in for the lottery for our group. I could be wrong. She was always the aunt was the one who kind of like spurred that trip for us.
The one that lived in Canmore.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was a member of the Alpine Club of Canada. She may still be, but yeah, so she was the one who kind of had that, drive to get us up there, which I'm so grateful for, because we were like a bunch of teenagers, and it's just like to do it, with like me and my cousins, and it was such a fond memory I have. Even when I'm up there, I kind of like think back to that every now and again.
Yeah.
And then the second time I went up there, it was just like with my mom and my cousin and my aunt. So it was just like a girls' trip, which we had sort of, I think it was like 3 or 4 summers in a row we went on these like girls' trips where we, one time we went up to Shadow Lake and stayed at the lodge and then hiked for a few days. And this summer, my aunt, same, because my aunt was the keener. So she thought us in on the lottery at the Elizabeth Parker hut. And so we spent 2 nights up there. hiked around.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I just read a book by, do you know who Sid Marty is?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
just read his
totally.
book, Switchbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read it now?
I haven't read Switchbacks. I read the
Men from Mountains.
Grizzly.
Oh, okay, he's got one, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a few. He's really cool. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
I read his one, Switchbacks, and he talks about when he was like a park warden up at Lake O'Hara, and I've only been there once.
Yeah, I didn't. We
met,
crossed
yeah, I
paths
think
up
we
there.
did,
Yeah. Sort of.
And I was reading this book, and even only been there once, I was like, I fucking want to go again. It just like when you read it and like he talks about his life up there, you're just like, I mean, that was one of many stories, but I was like, oh god, it is like reading that book. I think it actually gave me like a renewed appreciation for this area in general.
Yeah,
because I was reading it, being like, wow, like I actually, talking about Lake O'Hara, Lake Louise, Abbott's Pass, blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, I can actually still go to these places. It wasn't like I'd gone home and I was reading the book. I think if I had left for whatever bizarre reason, gone back to the UK and then read that book, I think it would actually be quite depressing because I think I would be like, oh yeah, I used to be there. Whereas reading it, this is only like last week, and being like, oh yeah, this summer I can try and go. Maybe not Lake O'Hara to be fair because it's crazy, but like I could still go all these places. I was like, oh, that's actually pretty sweet.
It's amazing how much is kind of in our backyard.
Yeah, no, I know.
That's
I
like,
totally take it for granted.
Yeah.
I know, and I think, sometimes I'm just, I've never not thought it was a beautiful place, but I think I have at times, like, when I read that book, I was like, wow, like, this actually is amazing. You know what I mean? Like, if you'd given that book to me prior to moving here, I'd be like, that place is magical. And it's like, oh, I can actually just like go out and do it.
I think that some of the old warden stories are very, I mean, like, the times have changed a lot from being like a park warden, in the 40s, 50s, 60s to now.
Well, even when he read that, he was writing when he wrote that book, Men from Mountains, like he wrote it because he was like, the title was because he was like, at that point in time, it was like pretty much only guys that were in the mountains. So he said, like, if I was to read that book now, I can't remember, but he changed it to a more neutral title. But he was like, because at this point in time when I wrote it, that's who was in the mountains. Yeah. Just like definitely changed. Yeah. But I think, Lake O'Hara's amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And so with regards to like your injury, so you're 7 weeks out from the surgery, so you should be okay for this summer?
The goal. Yeah. Physio thinks day hiking for sure. Maybe like do some backpacking trips towards the end. I've one backpacking trip I've already got booked in September, so I'm maybe a bit hesitant about that right now just because it's like a long day and big pack, but we'll see. I'll definitely train up to it, and I mean, if I have to, I'll pull the pin on it. I don't want to. That's not the goal for sure.
You also don't want to like go through the whole surgery thing and then go into soon again. And then you're like, right, going back to square one.
That was the biggest thing. At my first follow-up appointment with the surgeon, he's like, you maybe seem like someone who could get a little ambitious. And so he just said, like, don't do too much too soon. But definitely, because it would potentially, to stretch the graft or something like that would just be, it would render the whole procedure kind of not worth it.
And then if you did that though, like, would it, I mean, they're not going to refuse you, they're not going to refuse you the thing you need to make you better, but could they look at that, be like, well, we just gave you surgery and you've not listened to what we said, so
maybe. I don't know if they would ever say no. I think maybe they'd be less keen. You'd be like bottom of the list. They'd be like, we're gonna, you went from being a high priority, surgical candidate to like, I don't know. I think they probably see, the odd person, you know what I mean, like having to come back for maybe some earlier.
Yeah, because people make mistakes. Like, even as you say, like when you did it, you were hugging your friend, and it was just a weird.
Oh, it was like
thing. Yeah.
I know I can't remember if it was the surgeon or physio who's like, I've never had anyone, a hugging injury. I was like, well,
I hug hard.
When you're as kind as me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And has it made you think about like when you get an injury like that? Because your work is so like physical and outdoors and stuff like that. Like, did it at any point make you kind of be like, right, cool, I need to maybe incorporate something that isn't so like use of my body, or are you just like, no, I'm going to get back to where I was?
I think there's part of me that's so determined that knows that no matter what, I will always be someone who like moves. You know what I mean? And likes physically demanding tasks and those
Yeah.
sorts of things. I think the first time maybe I probably had that mindset of, do I want to do something that's this hard with my body for like my whole working career was probably when I transitioned a bit from like shoeing horses to going back to university.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, it took me 11 years to finish my degree. So sitting in a desk is not perhaps my strength. And, I mean, I think that was part of going back to university was to, I think I was always a bit nerdy and I like loved school. But also, yeah, it's like, what would I do if I couldn't physically use my body all the time?
Yeah.
So, and my degree kind of meshes into guiding a bit as well. So, yeah.
So seeing that like everything you do is so outdoorsy, like what do you actually do to switch off?
Oh,
You hike for your job, you kind of ski for your job, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because a lot of times, I mean, if I'm not injured, a lot of the switch off time is just kind of the same thing, but with friends.
Right, okay, yeah.
But again, the nerdy side of me has a lot of, I was actually kind of hoping, and I've not made a real priority of it in this, with this injury in my downtime to play guitar a bit more.
Okay. Can you play guitar?
I can.
Right, okay, nice.
Yeah. And we just moved, well, before I went to Japan, we moved into a really small space. So I had to put, I no longer have like a piano. So I've actually missed that lately.
Like you don't have one at all, or you just don't have it
It's
set
just
up?
in storage right now.
Okay,
So
yeah.
we can't, I don't have access to it. So I have like my guitar and my ukulele and I have my great grandfather's fiddle.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of, yeah. So, I like, playing music in my downtime.
Mm.
I've wanted to pull my sewing machine out, which kind of is just going to, falter back to outdoor stuff because I want to build like a frame bag for my gravel bike.
Right, okay.
But I would say I have some skills that aren't outdoorsy. But
Yeah,
I
you
do
have
like
like
to read.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like the blacksmithing thing, I always find that fascinating. So how did you, so was it the fact that you got into horseshoeing, was that like kind of led on to the blacksmithing stuff?
That was like and that.
Is that because you were into horses when you were a kid? So there's a kind of natural, like, you're into horses, you get work, like, shoeing horses, you then, like, get into blacksmithing, and then you just, like, start making cool stuff. Is it? Am I kind of oversimplified it, but is that...
No, that's kind of the progression of it. Yeah, like, I grew up on a farm, and I remember, that's very true. I've always loved horses.
Yeah.
I always wanted a horse. I always thought I would get a horse for Christmas with a bow on it.
Did you?
It was my dream. It's never happened.
It
could still happen.
Yeah.
I've put it out there now.
Leaf's gonna be like, okay.
Yeah. If my dad's listening, he'll be like, no. Yeah. So loved horses, grew up on the farm, and I don't really. I think what kind of pulled me into the program at Olds too was so there was like the whole curriculum of the course was like we had to do like a small business course and like an equine anatomy course. But a big chunk of the curriculum there was actually blacksmithing. So we had to like build our own, tools like punches and pritchels. And so before we could even build a horseshoe, we built all these tools that you use to build the horseshoes.
Yeah. That's so cool. Because when I think of blacksmithing, because I don't know anyone who's done it, you're the only person I know who's done it. Like, I don't even know it obviously does exist in the UK because I know you went to Ireland to do some of it, but I thought like blacksmithing was like medieval, like you're like making swords and axes and stuff, which obviously it makes sense that that's not the case. Yeah. But that's what I thought of blacksmithing like for a large part of my life.
Well, and I think especially in the UK, the history of the blacksmith wasn't just shoeing horses. Like they did anything that had to do with metal. So like the sewer, like to build the sewer holes or grates or like the key that lifts it out and stuff.
So remember when you went to Ireland, how did that come around? What was that for?
Yeah, so there's a group of farriers and blacksmiths who are like probably a little more type A, a little more competitive, and you can actually compete at shoeing horses should one choose to do so. And so I was part of that, maybe like group of folks.
Okay.
And we had a competition every year with like farm fair, which is like maybe like a similar to Stampede, but up in Edmonton, and like not quite as, they used to have the Canadian Finals Rodeo, and they would do this thing called Farm Fair. So it was like everything kind of agriculture related.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fellow that I apprenticed with started this shoeing competition there, and then being his apprentice, I helped with it. And one year the judge was from Ireland, and me just being like, I don't know if I was maybe 20 years old, naive me was like, I'd really like to go to Ireland and, and like shoeing horses. And so Paul was just like, yeah, like come on over. And so that's like, it was just kind of like this random, he was like, yeah, come on over. So I knew one person, and he taught at the college over there, and had a business, like a well-established business. So I just bought a plane ticket for a month,
So it's a month?
Leave Canada, come home to Canada. And I remember my dad being like, are you really doing this? No one in my family had really, I mean, my grandparents traveled, but like no one in my immediate, like my brothers or anyone.
Yeah.
Dad probably like being protective and, a bit worrisome, was like, are you really doing this? And I was like, yeah, the flight's tomorrow, buddy,
Yeah.
And it was really cool. So Paul was really on his A game in terms of, like, I don't know if he'd won the Calgary Stampede, but he's been very up in there.
Irish guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And competed at like Calgary Stampede for years and stuff like that. So he was really dialed at shooting horses. And so I went over and worked for him a bit, and like saw the college over there, which was really cool. And then I just went on a bit of like a traveling, like he knew a few other farriers. And so he just kind of like, it just so cool. Turned into this really cool, unplanned, working holiday. Yeah. And so I would, kind of like move down the line and meet another farrier here and shoot for horses. And I wasn't actually like working there, like I didn't apply for a visa or anything. Yeah. So it was really cool in that I would go like apprentice with these farriers, and then usually like their wife would, take me, like, you know what I mean? Like I'd do a couple days of work, and then it would just like room and board was always taken care of. And then they'd like take me to like a castle tour, or take me to, like see something in the area.
Oh, wow, that's right.
One guy took me skydiving as like a thank you for working for him. Yeah, for a few days. He's like, do you want to come skydiving? I was like, sweet, let's do it. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's very adventurous.
Do you think he wanted to do it and he needed someone to go with him as like moral support?
No, he was like properly like into skydiving, like had a wingsuit, and so he was just like casually going, and he's like, well, do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, let's do it.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
What did you think of Ireland when you were there?
I think it was like the coldest I'd ever been in my life, where there was no snow.
What time of year?
I went in February.
Yeah.
And so my like dry Alberta, you know what I mean? The dry cold of Alberta.
Yeah.
Wasn't used to, like, I'm sure it's similar to being on the coast, but I was not used to like
this is a
like
wet cold.
8 degrees above and like raining all day. And,
yeah.
Because
I think that's the thing. I mean, Ireland's slightly smaller, but I think people in the UK, me growing up there, you don't think of the UK as an island. We think of the UK as you would think of Canada, as being this like vast expanse of like land. So no one in the UK thinks that it's like a small island, which it is really. In Ireland's
in the scheme of, it's like,
like in the scheme of like, North America, like it's,
it might fit in like the bottom corner of Alberta.
So therefore you don't really think that you have like, I mean, I know, I guess like weather in the UK from the coast to the main, like the middle, like the mainland, the middle of the land, central, wherever it is different, but it's still ultimately like cold and wet, because I would assume,
because it's so cold. Yeah, you're never that far.
You're never that far
from the ocean. Yeah, it's very influenced by
like pretty central Scotland. Like honestly, live like real central Scotland, and it was like an hour and a half in either direction to get to the sea.
That's cool.
Yeah,
but again, I wish we had that here.
Yeah, when you grow up though, like I would never think of me living near the seaside, even though it's an hour and a half. Like when I grew up with their perspective of the UK size, an hour and a half's far.
I was just gonna say, you can attest to this though too, because when I was in Ireland, I remember like I drove, I think it was an hour and a half maybe between working with one person and working with another, and when I got there, they were very much like, oh, how was your travels? And like, it was like, it sounded like I'd had this epic day traveling, which is probably Scotland is similar.
Same, you drive like an hour and a half, it's like, oh, you must be like staying overnight,
Yeah.
And was there any like cultural things in Ireland where you're like, didn't expect, where you're like, oh wow, I didn't know that this was a thing, or just anything that was maybe like very different than, growing up on a farm in Alberta?
I think because it's like, part of the Commonwealth, it wasn't that same shock as like going to Japan and Asia. Like it was, Was there anything that really, I don't know, I was so young.
Yeah, she was absorbing everything.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me that was like different was like how old buildings could be.
Yeah,
You
true.
know, like because Canada's relatively new. Whereas there's like these big stone castles that are,
Yeah.
that was pretty cool and different.
Yeah, maybe there's like a pub in I don't live it. My mum and dad kind of live country, but like the closest town to us, there's a pub there that's like older than like 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 Canada and America, in the sense of like when they were like founded or first seen by European people. There's like a pub in that town that's like older than that period of time. I
Yeah.
remember just being like, before I moved here, I was like, I was like,
It's like hard to wrap your head around that kind of
it's kind
stuff
of weird,
sometimes, eh?
yeah. Because like even my mom and dad's house, like there's this thing called the Tower of Hobar, and it's just like one of these old like towers that they used to build, like in the like I think it was like the 1500s. So yeah, it's like 500 and something years old, and it's like still like now an Airbnb.
Yeah, that's the thing. These buildings are like functional,
and it was like
people could like own them.
Yeah.
The castles. That's what kind of like blew my mind. I was like, you just own a castle?
Because this was at the bottom of, it's not at the bottom of our garden, but effectively it was like a field away. And we used to go down as kids and run around it. And just like, I wouldn't even think anything of it. And then anyway, I went away for like a year and a half, went to Australia, travelled around for 6 months. Then when I went home, and then I remember just being like, because Australia is kind of similar history-wise in the fact that there's no castles and stuff. And I remember going home and being like, oh, this is like 600-year-old castle. Not castle, sorry, 600-year-old tower. Like 100 meters from my house.
Yeah.
Which I was just like, oh, that's so not the norm. Like in a lot of parts of the world. Whereas you just like drive all over Scotland and Ireland and England and Wales and all these places, and you just see castles all over the place. And it's just like,
and like the stone fences too.
Yeah.
That was a very like unique thing, I think, to like Europe that was very different than Alberta.
Because everything here is just like, if there are fences, it's just fence posts.
Like fence posts. And
so that's so cool though. But yeah, that's just amazing.
And
was it like, so you were like 20, so was it quite like, without getting in trouble, was there shenanigans, or was it like you were like, I'm here to learn and educate myself? Or did you have like some fun nights out, I guess?
There was fun nights. I don't know. Shenanigans. I think I was because I was like traveling alone.
Yeah.
I think there was, for me, more of a sense like the shenanigans were had at home.
Yeah.
You know? Was there like going to agricultural college was full of shenanigans. But I think when I was over there was a part of me that like kind of was just more like maybe turned on to like, you're traveling alone, you're not from here. Like I went out a few times and had like some fun for sure, but it was with people that I knew, and you know what I mean? And it was, I would say it was really relatively safe fun.
Yeah. And did you like have any issues with the accent at all, or were you just like, nah, so good? So I know some people have no issues. Like, you've never had an issue with my accent, even though my accent isn't really that strong, as you probably know, going over to that side of the world. But other people, like, I can speak as clearly and as slowly as I can, and they just won't get it.
And it still just looks.
So you seem like one of these people. You just.
I think I felt it pretty easily to like go over. Again, I was really young and naive, so I remember asking one guy, I was like, "Oh, I wonder what my accent sounds like," and he kind of like, made this like little girl like voice that kind of made fun of me, and I was very taken back. I was like, I don't sound like that. But then I was like, no, you probably do sound like that. No. Like, he probably has you down to a T. I think I was just so young and so naive. I think it was just like the whole experience felt very cool.
Yeah.
But I don't think anywhere I went I really had trouble understanding people, unless it's things like slang. You know what I mean? If it was like things that,
they're just actually made up words.
They're just words that aren't,
because I realized that when I came here was like, my accent's probably never been that big of a deal, but it was more the words I was using. Like I was using words that like within the UK, like everyone uses them, but I didn't realize, I knew that they were slang terms, but I didn't realize that they weren't obvious, like what I was talking about. Like, so if I was back home, I would say scran for food. Which like
Scran,
SCRAN. So like, whereas if you say that anywhere in the UK, like everyone pretty much knows what it means. So
is that like going for a meal, or is it like it
just refers to food? So I'm gonna, but then you can also be like, I'm gonna scran that cookie. Like it's
you can use it in many different
different
a few
contexts. But it's kind of like food, and then but even like, I mean, that one maybe is a little bit more niche, to be fair. But like even stuff like if I was cold, I would say I'm Baltic. Or like if
Cold. Okay, I would. Yeah, if you would say that to
yeah,
me,
you
I
see
would
what I
be
mean? Because
so
Baltic
lost.
is
Yeah.
cold. Baltic does mean
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Where like we would use it in that term, and so that's where I was like, okay, this is a real word that isn't made up. And I thought like I would use it, and people still wouldn't really get what I was saying because I think it just isn't in that kind of expression isn't really an expression here.
None.
But yeah. So the blacksmithing, so you went from like the horseshoeing,
Mm-hmm.
and then because you don't do that anymore, but you still do like the blacksmithing. You do like quite cool projects.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
had. So when I would say retired from shoeing horses.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would catch people off guard because I'd be 28.
Yeah, they're
Like,
like,
what are you doing? I'm like, I'm retired.
yeah, they're like, wow, you must have sold it for millions.
You must have had lots of
Yeah.
Botox. No? Um, uh, I think part of me actually got into shoeing horses really because of the blacksmithing. And I actually I think there was something about that was really cool to me, that was just like very interesting. And it was this like very kind of like old skill, you know? Um, and so I knew when I was kind of phasing out of shoeing horses that I was like, I didn't want to, sell my anvil or my forge or those sorts of things. I knew part of me always wanted to keep that. And it's kind of like a skill I want to keep up on. And even when I was shoeing horses, there was, when I was getting together to like practice for competitions or clinics, there would always be people who were just really talented, but really talented at making, whether it's like a household item or, because I was kind of involved with the Calgary Stampede with their horseshoeing competition, there was one class that was just artistic. And it was amazing to watch some of these European guys, like the Swiss team, like built this clock, like just out of scratch. They brought the mechanism for the timing they brought with them. But some people built these like beautiful roses and different things like that. And so there was part of me that always liked this like artistic blacksmithing. And there's something about working with metal that's like I don't know, this is going to sound very artsy, but it's kind of like freeing. Like if you can kind of like picture in your head, like what you want in the metal, how you want to shape it, and you can weld it together with your forge or, and things like that. It's very kind of like, I don't know, it just turns my brain on in a different way that probably, guiding doesn't, right? Like it's this other like.
It was like super creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that part of it's cool because it's sort of like, really, like as long as you can figure out kind of, like what your end goal is, whether it's like like I built a bracket in a bike shop that I used to work in and or I've built one of my friends this was like anyway, see, these people living in Canmore wanted something that they could attach this like swing off the roof of their house. So I just built this like bracket that would, come off the roof of the house. So some of it's very just like functional and not artistic. And but in sometimes when I'm just in the shop on my own, I have an idea. Like I started forging like lilies. But then also like upcycling like steel has kind of been a fun part of it. So like for the stamen of the lilies, I just used old bike cable and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just, I think there's a part of it that's like super creative. And because I have the luxury of having a friend whose workshop I can work in, it's kind of like I can pick it up, when I have an afternoon that I'm not, working or whatever, or a rainy day that I don't want to go suffer in the rain, as on a bike. Yeah. Just go turn the forge on and stay nice and warm and dry and tinker away. And yeah, I think it's something that I'll actually probably always do, like, yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, with regards to, like, the forge. So I think of a forge as, like, again, this is from movies, so excuse my ignorance.
No, it's good.
I picture, like, a massive, like, kind of, you get, like, wood-burning fires for, like, pizzas.
Yeah.
Like, you go into a pizza place and they've got, like, a big, massive...
The big oven. Yeah.
I can't imagine it's like that.
Well, it depends. There's kind of
Or do you have, like...
There's a few types of forges, so I do have one of those old school, like a coal forge. So it's like I don't know, it's probably like 3 feet by 5 feet. Maybe not quite. Maybe 3 by 4 feet or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like the coal sits sort of in like a little shelf, I guess you could call it, or in like a pot. And so mine is actually so old fashioned. So kind of like the movies that it still has like a hand blower in it. There's nothing electric. It's very, it's like rudimentary. But you can still have like coal forges that hook up to electric. So the fan, because you need air pulling through. So you start a fire in it. You have like your wood and you start a little fire and then you cover it and the coal like lights up and then that's what heats your steel.
And is it still coal, like even in the modern
So
day?
if you have a coal forge, then yes. But you can also, so when I went to Olds, we had, I think it was like 4 coal forges. So everyone got to learn how to use a coal forge, which was really cool. But for shoeing horses, or even just for ease, it wouldn't have been very applicable for me to show up at a barn and, wheel out this giant coal to like, give me 10 minutes. I gotta like, get my fire going and all that. So I have always had as well like a propane, like a natural gas forge.
Yeah.
And so they come in different, you can have like a single burner, double burner, triple burner, so different sizes. And then this is just in recent years. I don't own this type of forge yet, but I think it's kind of neat. It's like an induction, like an electrical forge. So you can like really kind of centralize just exactly what you want to heat.
Yeah.
But they're quite expensive. And so that's in part of the upscale later.
Yeah. And I would imagine with like the metal, like depends what metal, like what metal you're using will depend what heat you want for it.
Totally, yeah.
Because then like certain metal will be like more malleable at different temperatures.
At different temperatures as well. And you can do, depending on what your end product is, like a knife, like say you want to make a knife, you use steel that has higher carbon content. So it's like a higher quality steel. It's more pure steel, I guess you could say. But then you have to do a specific process to like harden it or like anneal it so that the steel is like durable to be a knife.
Yeah.
Otherwise it just stays kind of softer, if that makes sense. Yeah, and then there's different, I feel pretty lucky because a friend of mine who's that's all he's ever done is artistic blacksmithing in Edmonton. And he was self-taught. So he would read in a book, like, okay, have it at, an amber heat for this. And he said he would like scratch his head and be like, well, what's an amber heat, over like a red heat or, so I've been lucky that I haven't had to really scratch my head and teach myself those things. I've had I went to like, going to Olds, but then also just having friends and mentors who have kind of like helped kind of coach me through the whole thing. Even as I shift to more artistic stuff, like I have a friend who's so talented and he's still shoeing horses, but he's started making knives too. And so like anytime, I call him or have a question, he's like so helpful. Just be like, yeah, this is what you need to do. Or, like, yeah, next time you're in Edmonton, come into the shop and we'll, tinker away at it and I can show you some more things.
Yeah. So have you got anything that you're working on just now?
Yeah. One project was just like a home project for our house because we live in such a small space and I had to make a desk that was like a pentagon. So I was just like welded or trapezoid.
Okay, right, yeah.
Sorry.
I don't actually know what that is, but
it's like a rectangle, but the one side is off.
Right. I get what you mean. Yeah. I was at Pentagon. I was like,
Pentagon is like you're like, how is that efficient in a small space? Yeah. So I just like made the frame for the bottom of it. And I do want to start making some more knives. That's like really up my alley right now. Just because I think that's the other thing too with like this injury and having time off. It's like, I think I've known I'm going to have to like, not amuse myself, but I have all this time, you know what I mean? Where I think I've looked at it as like, what skills can I, you know what I mean? Like if I can't be skiing and guiding right now, like what do I want to focus my energy on?
Yeah, I think that's really good though, because you could also just be like, I'm going to do nothing.
Yeah, really good at video games.
Yeah. But
which would be cool too. I'm not very good at them.
Yeah,
it would
never play.
Yeah, I'm not good at them.
Nah. So how do you like? So have you kind of like split a little bit more of your time towards the blacksmithing now because of the injury then? Or are you saying that
now I haven't really been able to get in the shop a lot because like standing for a while, it's just like, even just like, standing for a while behind my anvil would be a bit much. But so I'm starting to like, I'm at the point where it's like, okay, I can go do, an hour in the shop or a couple hours. And I can't like lift things and I have to be really careful how I'm doing things. But some of it has been kind of trying to like do things like I kind of want to build a website. You know what I mean? So just so that like, I kind of knew that I wanted to take this time in life to like put some effort towards the things that will like, get me to some end goals and or get some of this like, make some of like that blacksmithing part of my life a little more marketable.
Yeah.
Because right now it's like, how to, if I don't sort of put the wheels towards it, like how am I ever gonna, sell more things or get out in the world with that avenue of my life. So
like between all, like how do you split your time between all the things, between like obviously the hiking and the skiing, they're kind of like easy because one's summer, one's winter, but like when you're in the seasons, like how do you split your time between like doing that, having time off, doing the blacksmithing? Is it just like
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have a real good
set thing?
recipe for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know
I
that.
think it's sort of like when I have time. I think I'm lucky with the blacksmithing thing that sometimes it's just like, well, when am I motivated to be in the
Yeah,
shop? Because it's not a real source of like income or anything like it's like really more of a hobby right now. Unless like today I was at the bike shop and one of the guys who manages the bike shop was like, hey, a friend just called me and like he's like, do you think you can weld this up for him or build this? And I was like, yeah, just like have him give me a message kind of thing.
is it something that you would like to?
It's a part of my life I think I want to like put some energy in and see kind of where it goes for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. I don't think that would ever be what I do full time, you know? But I think it's something I always want in my life.
yeah,
Like I think it's become part of my identity that, it's got its own little spot nestled in
yeah,
there. Yeah. But in terms of how do I schedule things, I'm pretty, again, nerdy about having a calendar. And so
yeah. I've seen said calendar.
you've seen the highlighted
Yeah,
colors and
yeah.
yeah, so I think that helps me kind of control the chaos of all the things and
Yeah.
all the feathers in my hat.
Oh yeah, I definitely need to write stuff down. Like yeah, I am quite like maybe a structured person. I like having that in my life
Yeah.
because I will do the opposite though. Like sometimes if I've got nothing to do for the weekend, like I'll actually write down what I can do, even if it's really mundane stuff like laundry, go to the gym, go run. Because see if I don't, and I'll end up just like sitting in my room, like I actually like reading, but like I might even scroll and then, or I guess what I'm getting at is like I'll wake up on a Saturday morning and because I haven't like written all this stuff down, I'll just be like, I don't know what to do, therefore I kind of do nothing. And then the next thing I know it's Saturday afternoon and I'm like, oh, I've just kind of wasted a day. Whereas
Yeah.
if I write it all down, then I'm like, okay, right, yes, sweet, I could do this. Or like even on a calendar, being like, right, okay, on Monday I can do that, which is so
For
cool.
me,
But
it's kind of almost a bit of like I don't know if journaling is the right word or not too, but then I can like look back. It's so neat to have kept my like, I guess, yeah, like, I think there's a book, it's called like bullet journaling or something,
yeah,
and I think I've kind of modeled that in sort of, how I organize things, but I think it's helped me too to look back. And sometimes I have things that have been on my to-do list for a long time. And when I look
yeah,
back and I was like, okay, like that's when like, there's kind of to me more of an awareness where it's on paper and it's like, no, actually, you need to get this one off the to-do
yeah.
list.
Yeah, like I started journaling when I was like 23 and when I started traveling. And I remember what I found about journaling is I kept writing the same thing in it over and over and over. And at this point in time, I was like, hungover, and I was traveling as well. So like, it was kind of this added thing where I was like, I'm going all these like countries and places I've never been to and beautiful temples and stuff. But I was hungover. And see, honestly, just constantly writing that in and writing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Like it did change. It made me like eventually I was like, this is insanity. Like
You're kind of aware of it,
I was
hey?
just like
Yeah.
so. It made me much more aware than I knew. I was hungover. Like it wasn't like the years before. I was like blissfully unaware. Like, but it was like the process of writing it down. Like made it more like, oh no, like I need to do something about this. And I remember reading something about. So I still journal now. And I read something that I think this person, whoever it was like, oh, they've journaled for like X amount of years of their life, their whole life, I think they were saying. And they'll go back and they'll read an entry from their journal on the day. So say today's the 17th of April, like they'll go back to the 17th of April last year and read what they wrote last year and see what they were thinking. And
That's kind of cool.
yeah, because I never go back and read them.
Yeah.
I kind of like, mine's like a real mix of things. Like, remember when I first started reading it, first started doing it, it was very pragmatic, very like, I met Laura at the hostel we went to temple, it was good. Because I was like so insecure about like, oh, but what happens if someone not that anyone's ever read them.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, what happens if someone reads them? So I would never like write down like my thoughts and feelings and stuff like that. But anyway, like fast forward like a decade nearly till now,
Yeah.
and I'll be like, today I was thinking about the wind and like where life will take me. Like it's
like
gone.
more,
It's gone
like
from being
deeper.
very like very like went here, did this, met this person to like I wonder what my future will bring. But yeah, I did actually go back and read like an entry from like I think when I first came to Canada like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was quite funny reading it because it was all like, I guess because I had just moved here and I was, you're in that like new change of life and stuff and everything it was like the most motivational entry of it. I was like, you could do it. Like, it was quite funny to read and be like, wow, I've totally forgot that I had. That your mindset changes as the years goes on, which is maybe a fairly obvious thing to say, but to go back and read it, and be like, wow, like the way I was chatting to myself was very like, yeah, it was
It's like very
it
positive.
was very positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not all positive, but that was very positive.
But
And I was
that,
like,
yeah.
wow, that's so weird that I had such a like, you can do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool to like have a journal and, like actually go back to it and be like, oh, sweet. Like, yeah, it's cool to like kind of look back on stuff like that.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I remember when I went to Ireland, that was one of my clients because I'd already started shooting horses by then. And it was one of my clients. She's like, take a travel journal. And her theory with that was more, she's like, you'll forget what I mean? Like all the things and they'll blur.
Yeah.
And I do, yeah.
Because I remember the places I went to, but then I'll read about like things that happen, like specific things. Like I'm making this up, but it's like, we went out and, I tripped up over a scooter and like, I was hilarious because of some random thing. And you kind of forget, like, I've even done it where like I've gone through periods, it's not like I do it every day. Like I've even gone through like a couple of months of not doing it.
Yeah.
And I kind of regret it because I'm like, oh, I know for a fact that there was like something's happened in those months that was really cool, especially when I was traveling.
Yeah.
But it'll be gone to history. I'll never remember that, like, especially when I'm 60. Whereas when you write it down and you've been able to read back and be like, oh yeah, like I can't remember, like I met that group of people and we did this thing and it was so cool.
It's kind of almost like meditative in a way too.
Yeah.
Like, or like, yeah.
Yeah, I find like writing stuff down gets it out of my head.
Yeah.
Like whereas before I did that, like sometimes I'll actually like be like eager to journal because I'm like, I need to get this out of my brain. I'll be like, oh, like, again, making up, but like, had a really hard day at work, like, someone, so-and-so was an asshole, blah, 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 it never happens.
I cleaned the office.
Yeah, Laurie came in the office. And it's almost like, even though I might continue to think about it, like, it kind of like exercises it out of you, where you're like, sweet, like, it's kind of
cathartic?
Like a little bit,
like
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of that, or are you kind of...
Do I journal?
Yeah.
I think, like, at times in my life I have.
Yeah.
But I think, like, what I do now, I have, like, a notebook that I've had, and I've been doing this probably for 4 years, where it's, like, every day I try and write down, like, things I've done, but it's almost like a revolving to-do list. But it also, like, I'll definitely put down, like, oh, I did this, and it was really fun with so-and-so, or things like that. So to some degree.
Do you keep them? Or do you
they're all, like, in the... And unlike you, when you were like, what happens if someone reads them? I'm like, I hope someone reads these one day.
Yeah,
like, one day, like...
So what I would say is, I've definitely changed that. Like, I think it would be cool if at some point, in a fictitious future where I have, like, grandkids and stuff like that, like, to keep all these... Because I'm 31 now, I don't know how many books I've got, but, like, 10, maybe.
Yeah.
Since I've been 23. So say I hopefully get to a really old age and I've continued to do it, to have, like...
Have a little grandkid on your lap and...
Or even for, like, me to be dead, which is really morbid, but then to kind of read through it. Like, I think that would be... I would personally find that really cool if if one of my granddads had done that and you were able to, like, from the age of 23 to whatever age he lived till, like, read through his life and...
Yeah.
But then I think maybe you kind of alluded to it there, like, there's times where, like, I do and I don't do it, and, it's funny, like, see when life's going good, I actually do it less, probably because I've got less in my mind. And
you're busier in the...
You're busier,
like,
yeah.
Caught up in the...
Whereas when it's kind of, I find that, like, when stuff's not going well, that's when I write in it. So I might give a bit of a skewed...
You're going to sound miserable when you
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Well, okay. Remember when not that I haven't now, but... When I first started traveling and I had social media at that point in time, I was like posting videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were always like, I always thought they were kind of funny, but then I remember my sister was like, you need to like stop being so negative. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, you're complaining about everything. But I was doing it and not like, I wasn't being like, oh my God, I hate India. It sucks. I want to come home. I'd like been commenting on something that was like that came across as a complaint, but it's usually because like, the funny stories are when stuff goes wrong.
For sure.
Whereas if I was just like, oh yeah, I went to a temple, it was great, had no issues, traffic was lovely, came home. Whereas you're like, oh, fucking the guy like crashed into someone and then we had to get out. And, it's always the kind of like, when things go wrong, they are often like the best stories.
Yeah.
But like, at times they can come across as negative because you're just like, oh, bus broke down, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think, if someone was made to read mine in the future, they might be like, oh, this guy was like I don't know, maybe I had a lot of inner turmoil, but
I think everyone has some to
yeah,
some
no.
degree, you know.
And do you find like do any of the things that you do specifically like can I help you? Like you were saying it's almost like meditative to journalize or anything when you're like hiking or skiing or blacksmithing, is there any of them where you just kinda like zone out?
Like in an escape
Yeah.
from probably to some degree. I mean, I think there have been I think for whatever reason too, especially those like endurance things, I think sometimes I've done them
Yeah.
in an effort to sort of find that, you know what I mean? State where your brain is sort of like, you know, you're not,
So you're
it
just
is kind
thinking
of
about what you're doing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like you can't really be, you know, depending on, yeah, you can't be like ski touring in like, you know, really technical
Danger.
terrain and thinking about like, oh, I really, you know, I went out with so and so last night. It wasn't very, you know what I mean? Like I hate the pizza
Yeah.
we got or whatever. You know, like you can't. You have to be very present. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, yeah. Sometimes, for sure, I think actually, if I reflect on my life or where I've been in life, and you know what's been going on, you know, in my world, kind of thing, and for certainly, there's been times where, oh yeah, like the endurance event has been like to, I don't know if it's to escape those things or maybe to cope with those things, or,
Mm.
but for sure, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think like I've sometimes been stressed and I'll go like a run and I'll be like, oh, it will genuinely chill me out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and
Yeah.
even, yeah, I don't know why, like, oh, I mean, yeah, there's obviously like health benefits and stuff like that, but I definitely find that, like, doing stuff like that, like, I do a lot of swimming just now, and like, um, well, you could argue that it's definitely quite hard to do if you've got demons in your mind because all you're doing is swimming in a pool. Thankfully, I now have headphones, which is like a godsend.
Oh, so you can listen to music
So you
while,
listen to music? Yeah,
yeah.
have you ever used any? No?
Not in the pool.
They're
That's
amazing.
kind of why I like the pool, because it's just like
I
you
know.
and your breath and, you know, yeah.
I know. I think that's why I got into swimming. Well, I got into it because I had this back thing and it helps. But also I was like, oh, it's quite cool because I need to like kind of work my mind because I
Yeah.
need to, become comfortable with like the monotony of swimming and being with my own thoughts. And then I gave that up and bought headphones. And the
Mm-hmm.
headphones are
Has
amazing.
it changed your swimming experience?
Yeah, because so I've had them for a couple of months now, and one time I didn't have them, and it was like the worst. Like the beginning of the first 15 minutes,
Yeah.
where I was like in denial about not having the headphones, was horrible. But then once I kind of just let go, it was like, this is way too deep a statement for the reality of what was going on. All that happened was I'd forgot my headphones. I was swimming for an hour,
Yeah.
so I just had 45 minutes to swim without them. But like once I'd got past, I was almost like at the 50-minute mark, I was like letting go of some weird, deep like thing that had going on in my mind, and I was like,
Yeah.
I just need to accept that there's no.
You're
It's like accepting that someone had died. You just like move on with your life. Except I was just moving on.
grieving the headphones.
Yeah, I
It's
was
not,
grieving the
yeah.
headphones for 45 minutes. But yeah, so once
But
I
it's funny how when you're
let go,
used to something and if that helps you, you know what I mean, get through a very mundane task, it
yeah.
can be like little things that you can
Yeah,
kind of
definitely.
wreck you for a little
Yeah.
bit. Like,
And I was kind of like against them not against them, but I didn't want to use them for swimming because I genuinely wanted to like tap into the whole mind thing. And then I got a swimming coach and he was the one that suggested to me because my swims are kind of long now. It's like up to like an hour and a half. And he was like, it definitely he said, if you want to get headphones, he was like, I would recommend it because he was like, it'll make.
I've seen people in the pool with them and I kind of have envy,
They're amazing.
truthfully. Yeah. Like
If you
I
want
have
to
a bit
borrow
of
them, let me
envy.
know because, I actually thought I had them here, but I don't. If you
When I
want,
get back to swimming, I can't
yeah.
be in the pool right yet.
Or even
Yeah.
if you're coming in the office, be like, hey, bring your headphones because they are amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's surprising how good they are. Like I don't know if it'd be kind of like, yeah, if you're just like plodding along, like not trying to go fast, because obviously like the faster you go, the more like commotion you're making in the water with regards to, like hitting it and like the bubbles and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just kind of like cruising along at a pace, like you could easily listen to like a podcast.
Yeah. You could learn while
Yeah,
swimming.
you could. Yeah, mine is like a mix of like music or like I've got like a couple of like 30-minute long like motivational be like a better it's not actually that but it's kind of like more motivational like training mentality stuff.
Yeah.
Because I was like there was someone in the pool. I was chatting to them and I was like they were asking about the headphones and I was like my normal reaction would have been like, oh, you should try them, but because I was listening to this like very like kind of like wishy-washy, like, be a better you. I was like, I'm not giving
You're not.
I was
You
like,
didn't want to share your
no,
motivational speech.
no. I was like, I'm not giving this guy these
Had it
episodes
been
because he's
Taylor
gonna
Swift,
think,
you would have been like, hey,
yeah, I'd be
yeah.
like, oh, yeah, Katy Perry, put it on.
Yeah.
But I was like, he's gonna think I'm a psycho if I give it to him, and it's like all he's hearing is like someone being like, you could be better tomorrow than you were today. So I was like, oh, like I'm like, they're actually dead. I just got them.
Just straight up.
Yeah.
But you should try them another time. Yeah. That's cool. Because are you training in the pool right now? Like
Yeah.
for an event?
Yeah. I was going to say, did they recommend swimming for your knee? Nah.
Not yet.
Because I would. Oh well, yeah. I guess because you're kind of like.
Well, and there was just like, I think initially because there's like incisions and stuff, they don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you get away.
You don't want to be in the pool.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, I think some of that'll be where I go back to first doing some like, you know, jumping and so, sort of some of those like activities. I think that's all in like the progression is like start those things in the pool. Yeah. And I haven't always loved, maybe I just think I haven't. No, the first time I was in the ocean, I was very overwhelmed. So swimming is not my like, you know, I'm sure the pool and swimming is some people's like safe haven. Yeah. And it's not that for me. But so I've actually really enjoyed over the last few years kind of like, you know, pushing myself to like be in the water and swim more and yeah. And I've actually come to a point where I kind of actually really like it. Yeah,
I would say the same. I'm actually not, even though I'm swimming all the time, I'm actually not like a massive swimmer. Like I'm not one of these people that's like, I can't wait to swim. I can now because I honestly kind of making a joke about it, but now that I've got the headphones, like it's actually really good to swim. Yeah. But yeah, before I had the headphones, I wasn't one of these people that was like, oh, I can't wait to swim for an hour in the pool. Like,
yeah, I would go to the pool and see people in the zone, you know, like swim cap on, and you could just tell it was like their thing. And I was just like, yeah,
that's not me. I know. I look like that because I have all that gear, but I'm definitely not the
You're
like
working up to it.
Yeah, but the reason like because obviously like I would assume it's the most like low impactful exercise you could do. Really, I mean, you may like
and cardio. Yeah. No, I think it is. Yeah,
because your shoulders may get like you may just get like repetitive strain from your shoulders, but then just like stretch because like
and you can like switch up.
Yeah,
the stroke you're doing too in the pool. Can't you? Like, there's lots of freedom. I remember taking swimming lessons, so when I'm in the pool, I probably look like a 8-year-old me in the pool still. I remember being on my back and learning how to like. The one thing was just it was like there's no way to say this without sounding nerdy, so I'm just gonna get it out. But the motion was like chicken, hawk, snake, and like I'll still do that in the pool sometimes instead of doing like the backstroke. But it's like amazing how fast I can like you can kind of like propel yourself in the water.
Yeah. Well, before I got this coach, like I think it was the beginning of the year because I'm doing this race.
Yeah.
And from then till now, I had a coach before then that for a couple of months, and then they put me onto this other guy. So say from like probably like October, the end of October, like from then till now, which is what like 4 or 5 months or something.
Yeah.
My swimming, I thought I was a good swimmer. Genuinely remember saying that to the coach. I was like, yeah, I'm like a good swimmer. I just need to like get like get really like dialed in.
Yeah.
And like I was like, oh, I actually suck at swimming. But I was like an averagely good swimmer. But see, it's the same as anything though. See, once you get into it, like
there's always someone.
There's always something. Yeah. There's always a slight tweak you can make to like when you like try and catch the water with your hand and stuff like that. So like even from the last 5 months, like I would say my swimming's gone from being like I'm probably like when I was going fast in October, like I was conscious like I'm going fast here. My pace now when I'm cruising is probably the same, but it's just because like not because I'm super fit and I'm like, but it's because like I'm so much more efficient.
Yeah, it's probably less tiring.
Same as like skiing, or anything really, like even hiking as well. Like you just like when you dial in the movements and they're more like efficient, you don't need to go faster. You're just because the body mechanics is better.
Totally,
you're just you're
just more efficient.
Yeah,
less energy to So this is my burning question for you though. Can you wear your headphones for this event, or are you going to be?
That's actually a good question, which I don't know. I don't know, but there's a thing. So I was going to ask the association that is like running the event, if I could wear them.
Yeah.
The only thing is though, because it's like mine's in the sea, and I have a boat with me.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like not like a health and safety thing as in like an actual rule, but it might just not make sense because I'll need the people in the boat to like relay information to me. And
while you're in the water.
While I'm in the water.
So where in the sea, like the ocean?
The ocean, yeah.
Okay, so where is this? I want like.
Oh, so I'm swimming. It's the English Channel.
No way.
Yeah, so I'm swimming in England to France. Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing.
I know. So yeah, it's not like in a. Yeah, it's not. So it's also just me. Like it's not like there's other people. It's just me.
It's just you doing this.
Yeah. So yeah, in that context, like they all need to be like, hey, they'll need to like tell me stuff like pick up your pace. You're going too fast. There's a tide. There's a boat. There's a you know. And if I've got these
it's
headphones
like a safety
in,
thing.
like I've had the headphones in, and I've had people in the pool closer than we are, and like they're talking to me, and I'll need to take it all off and be like, what?
Yeah.
Because they're really good. So it's just like having headphones and you can't hear anything. But so yeah, I don't know. But the thing is, so when I did the 100 miles, I did have headphones for that.
Yep.
And I kind of like, in hindsight, I'm like, I kind of relied on them a little bit to distract me from what I was doing. Which, you know, I guess like there's levels to like how you want to approach something. And I think I look back at it now and I'm like, oh, I feel like it, even though I did it, it wasn't like the music made me go any faster or turned my legs over. But I'm like, I did kind of make it easier because I was distracting myself.
You could distract, yeah.
Whereas with this, I'm like, as part about the whole swimming thing, which I've now not done with the training, where I'm like, you know, swimming's hard because it's just you and your thoughts and your breath.
Yeah.
Like maybe when the race day comes, I'll be like, right, cool. Yeah, this is the time to just suffer through your demons, just sort out your life.
I think that was for me when I knew when I did the 24-hour race that I couldn't have music playing.
Oh, could you not know?
No.
You weren't allowed, or you just didn't?
Wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
And I think there was something about, I was really curious to see, like, if I'm going to physically be doing this crazy task for 24 hours, I was like, where is my head going to, you know what I mean? I was kind of like really interested in the challenge of where is my, you know, like, where's my head going to go?
So yeah, that's exactly what. Yeah. So I think it's even, now that you've said that, I think that's even more impressive that you did that. Because yeah, I did that. I mean, I did a similar thing, different. You know, I was running as opposed to cycling, but I did I had the music, and it definitely helps.
Yeah.
Whereas I think like you doing that for 24 hours, I think that's even more of an achievement that you didn't have that distraction, and it really is just you and your mind.
Yeah.
Was there any point where like your mind was quiet, or you constantly the whole time, was it just kind of like positive, negative, and then neutral?
No, I think there was definitely like quiet moments. It's been a while now. It's been a few years since the event, so it's kind of hard to like. I remember there being. I remember at one point in time, I remember just crying and not really knowing. You know, I had similar maybe to background, and I was just like, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, I don't even know why I'm crying right now, but it's happening. It just happened. So I was just like, I'm just gonna let this happen. You know, pedal away. And I remember too, though, actually, like I even talked to my friend who told me like there's gonna be real lows. I don't know. I was like, you know, I can't say I really had like there were some shitty moments and lows, but I was like, but they didn't really stay.
Yeah.
You know? Like it was just sort of like, and there was, I will say, like I didn't have music, but there was a song that I really enjoyed at the time, and I found really to be, I don't know, it's like a mantra almost.
Yeah.
So even though I didn't have headphones in, like there were times where I was just like that, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I was kind of like
singing
in my head, it was kind of like I could, you know what I mean? It's like thinking about like, you know, like the song or, you know, whatever. So it's like, who knows? Maybe I sang out loud in the middle of the night. Keep the bears away.
Well, I remember I read a book about a girl who swam the channel, and she did that. She just had a couple of songs in her head, and she just
it helped so much
on repeat. And I was like, God, be better than.
Yeah, they better be songs you like, though.
Yeah, no, I have a weird thing of like singing Christmas songs. Like Cass hates it because I was singing like Christmas songs like in summer. Not like
I'm with you on that.
Song,
no, I think Christmas is.
I think it's because it's so catchy though, and so like I don't know why. I'll literally not even trying to annoy her. Like I'll just be sitting there and I'll be like singing a Christmas song, and she's like, "Shut the fuck up." Like why are you? I don't know. It's just weird how certain songs get on a loop in your head. But I read this thing that said if you have like a thing where you have a song just on repeat in your head, you need to listen to the song in full. Because once you listen to the song in full, it's almost again like the whole journal thing. It like your brain lets it go. Like that's, and I remember doing it once, and it definitely worked.
Yeah,
not forever, obviously, but it definitely for a good like couple of days. I remember being consciously like, oh yeah, I finally and it was a Christmas song. Like it was a Christmas song in like mid-July, and I was like,
poor Cass.
I know. Mm-hmm. How did you? So with the cycling, how did you find going into the daylight again? That must be
Uh,
quite a cool
it was cool. I've always loved
thing.
mornings.
Yeah.
And so I
Did you?
even, I remember being on the farm, or anyhow, I love like the sun coming up.
Uh-huh.
But it's funny, I do remember that. Like, I can, like, if I think back to it, I can really even, like, still very vividly see that
Yeah.
morning and, like, the sun coming up and just, like, being on my bike and thinking, like, it was, like, I think when the sun came up, I knew, I think that gave me a sense of, too, like, okay, I can do this. Like,
And
I'm going to
your
finish
energy
it.
levels came back up as well.
I
Like your
think so.
actual circadian rhythm also
Hmm.
like kind of dips a little bit because it thinks you're supposed to be sleeping, and then it, naturally, regardless of
How tired I
how
was.
tired you are, like it naturally like kind of comes up because it's the morning and you.
Yeah. And that event, too, like, the event, so it was, like, noon to noon. And it was, like hammering down rain, like, just, like,
Oh God, was it
yeah.
the whole time?
No, at the
Oh.
start of the event, though, and I remember looking at the weather model, and it was like, okay, it's supposed to, like, the first 2 hours, I'm gonna be riding and, like, just getting, like.
I mean, you'd probably want it if it was going to rain at any point. You'd want it at the beginning.
Exactly, yeah, and then but, like, I never have, like, I remember my, like, and again, my friend who told me I should do this was kind enough to tell me, he's like, "Laura, you're gonna change your chamois, like, at
Yeah,
least a few
yeah, yeah,
times."
yeah.
Because I remember being so wet and there was, like, mud in my you know what I mean? Like, there's mud in your chamois and all this kinda, so I remember, like, the rain did stop at, like, 2 p.m. as, like, the weather model predicted, and then by the morning, the course was so tacky, which in mountain biking is, like, it was good, like, you know what I mean? Like, all that sort of, like, muddy, like, where you lose grip maybe on a corner didn't exist, like, it was just, like, the bike was, like, sticking to the trail, and so when the sun came up, the riding was probably in the best, you know what I mean? It was, like, the
Mm-hmm.
course was in really good shape by then, so
Mm-hmm.
the riding actually got really fun as well,
Yeah.
and so it's, like, a really nice way to finish.
Finishing, yeah.
And then, yeah, and I knew I had, like, whenever the sun came up in August, it's like, yeah,
That's quite
I just
cool.
have to ride till noon, and then I'm
Yeah,
done.
it's quite cool. They also had like a definitive time
Mhm.
because you're like, regardless of how, and also, so how did that work then? So did you? It wasn't just like at 12 p.m. you just stopped at some point in the course and then made your way back. I assume you had to like
Well,
get.
I knew when I came in from that last lap, when I got the latte and the energy
Yeah,
gel, and I really probably wanted to just, like, lay on the grass and, be done.
pass out. Yeah.
Mhm. But then, yeah, that last lap, I knew just, like, with how much time was left till noon, it was like,
Mm.
it's like, that's all I can do is one more
Or
lap.
would they have been like, would they not have let you go on another lap?
I don't know if they wouldn't have let me, but I think at that point in
Because
time,
they'd be
I
like
wouldn't
a
have
lap.
wanted to go anyways,
Yeah.
but,
Because I guess if you and the other person
I
were
think
like,
if you were in the middle, you would have finished, you know what I mean? Like, if you went out on a last lap and you're close to finishing, like,
yeah,
you would have rounded the whole course, but they wouldn't have counted that last lap, right?
yeah,
So
but then you would have just been like torturing yourself for it.
exactly. So
Yeah,
I think I finished with a half hour left,
yeah.
to the end time. So I just knew, I was like, nah, this is the last lap. I'm done.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing mine, so the cutoff was 33 hours, and I remember thinking like, oh, even though I'd never done anything like that, I was like, oh, like, I wasn't setting a goal for myself. I was like, 24 hours is like reason. I was like, that's surely reasonable, like 24 hours. And anyway, I remember getting to the 24-hour mark, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm not anywhere near the end of this.
Yeah.
And I went from being like, yeah, like 24 hours to then just like, I actually don't even know if I'm going to do this in 33 hours. I ended up doing it in 31 and a half.
Nice. Yeah.
So I did do it, but yeah, it was funny how I'd gone from like this 24-hour thing to like, oh, like I've got like, I remember like on
To
the,
like
yeah, like
kind of having a mode,
going.
like, yeah, or pick
But
up the pace.
yeah, and I remember as well though, like, the reason I was asking about the sunrise is because I had that as well, where like, I remember just being like, wow, this is really cool. Because I think maybe, well, yeah, similar to you in the sense of like, I'd never exercised that long. I'd never exercised through the night into the next morning.
Yeah.
And I remember just genuinely being like, I don't know how this will go. So I think that was like the coolest moment in the race for me, minus obviously finishing it, was because I was like, maybe again, because it's just sunrise is like a cool, nice thing to see regardless, but it was almost like a bit of a like, a memorable moment in it, being like, wow, I never thought I could actually run through the night, and here we are, it's
And, like,
daylight. And I was lucky as well, so they'd started it was 100 miles, 100k, and then a 50k, and they'd started the 100 miles and the 100k on the Saturday.
Mhm.
So we're now into Sunday morning,
Yeah.
which is when they started the 50k runners.
So there's a burst of fresh people out there.
Yeah, so then there was like a burst, exactly. So I was the same as you with the cycling thing, where like I could see people in the distance when I was through the night with their headlamps on, but they were like literally like kilometers away.
Yeah.
So you were kind of like, you would pass people, you definitely would pass people, but it would kind of be brief. Like you'd be like,
because everyone's that was like, it's a race, right?
Yeah.
And so there's for me, because it was a loop, you know, there were definitely people who were there, like, as much as it was a race, that they were fun, you know? Like, I remember
Yeah.
riding along, like, beside a, like, 12-year-old kid at one point in time, and it was, like,
I
it's
know
cool.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we passed people really briefly, but then, yeah, that Sunday, then I was like a whole new crew of like 50Kers, and they were like screaming down.
Yeah.
Because they were doing
Because of fresh
50K,
legs. Yeah.
I mean, only 50K, which is still really far, but in the context of this,
But in
it
comparison,
kind of
yeah,
gave me
like,
like a little bit of a boost.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I'm not actually out here all alone.
You're low. Yeah.
There was like, I might have told you this already, how like the day after they were doing a buffet and like they were like, this is the first one you've ever done stand up. Did I tell you that?
No.
Okay, so they had a buffet the next day for everyone who'd done it. Like a breakfast buffet. It's in like a fairly large, like kind of conference room. I'd be making up, but say like there's 100 people there. So they're like, if you completed the 100 mile on yesterday, Saturday, whatever day it was, stand up. So it's like maybe me and like 12 other people stand up. And I think there were more people, but not everyone came. So there's like 12 of us, you know, and I'm like, my ego kind of kicked in. I was like, wow, look at me, 12 people. Well, look at me, fucking 12 out of however many.
Yeah.
But then they were like, if this is the second time you've done it, stay standing. So I was like, oh, cool. So I sat down and they kept doing that. So they were like third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And the whole point of they were doing it was that a woman had done it 10 times.
Jeez, yeah.
And it wasn't that that wasn't like the 10th time that she had run 100 miles. That was the 10th time she had run this specific 100-mile race.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the whole point of it was to be like to give her credit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, even in and I mean this in a good way and in a humbling way, where like even in a moment where I was like, wow, look at me, I've done this incredible thing, to realize in that moment that there's always people like above you, like way above me, you know what I mean? And I mean that in a positive way, like it's like cool, like don't let your ego get too high and appreciate that there's more that you can kind of aim for. But it was also like,
but also it's like good on you for, you know what I mean? Again, it's like, it's not a, and I think, I don't know how you felt when you finished, but whenever I've done any sort of like a bike race or something, you do sort of get a bit of a, whether it's an endorphin high or, you know what I mean? But you do get this like.
Well, I was going to say because in running you get like you get runner's high. Yeah. See, in cycling, do you get?
Oh, I think it's the same like in endurance. Like yeah.
But I've got a few mates who don't really run. And they say like they've never got it, but I think it's because like I think you need to like kind of like train the thing for like be fit enough that like you actually are relaxed when you're cycling and enjoying it. Because I think if you've never really ran and everyone's like, oh, there's this amazing runner's high, and you run like once and you're like, nah, that sucked, because you're not like, you haven't trained yourself to do it.
I remember one of my profs in university too, though, saying that they did some research and there are people who never get that endorphin kick. Yeah. So I don't know if it's like how you're hardwired. Some people, get it, and unfortunately, some people never get it, which would suck.
I know, it would suck.
It would just always feel not fun.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
No. Well, look, I appreciate you sitting down for so long and chatting with me, because I know you've got, I know you're just busy, so.
No, it's all good.
Thank you.
Yeah.